Chapter 2035. However, Xue covered her mouth again. Although Xiao Hua's cultivation was at the early stage of foundation establishment, his strength seemed to be higher than Xiong, who was at the middle stage of foundation establishment. He shouldn't be afraid of the fire Qilin. Therefore, she hurriedly said, their great-grandfathers are the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. They're all early-stage nascent soul cultivators. We can't afford to offend them. Hehe, I understand. Xiao Hua transmitted his voice. Then, he let go of Xue's hand and turned to look at Hua Furong. When Hua Furong saw Xiao Hua looking at her, she glanced at the fire Qilin from the side and sighed slightly. Cousin, let's go. This is Xiao Hua, my sister's savior. Don't embarrass him. The fire Qilin nodded and said seriously, who is your cousin? How can I lower myself to his level? Okay. Hua Furong agreed and flew to Xiao Hua. She cupped her hands and said, Fellow Daoist Xiao, we finally meet again. Your junior sister has been worried about you for the past dozens of days. Every day, she asked me to accompany her outside Bright City to wait for you. She's really affectionate. Xiao Hua didn't dare to neglect and also cupped his hands. Fellow Daoist Hua, thank you for bringing my junior sister to Bright City. Thank you for taking care of her for the past year. Don't mention it. I want to thank fellow Daoist Xiao even more. I dare not take credit for this. Hua Furong smiled and pointed. This is my cousin, Fire Qilin. He's also a famous cultivator of Ardent Fire Mountain. I am Xiao Hua, a disciple of Imperial Thunder Sect. Greetings, fellow Daoist Hua. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and greeted. The fire Qilin was also polite and cupped his hands. Fellow Daoist Xiao is indeed a talent. I'm envious. Moreover, my junior sister is indebted to fellow Daoist Xiao for saving her. Everyone in Ardent Fire Mountain is grateful to fellow Daoist Xiao. I dare not take credit for this. It's just a matter of convenience, Xiao Hua said modestly. The fire Qilin turned to Xue and said, Fellow Daoist Xue, since we've received your senior brother, let's return to our residence in Bright City. We still have to pay our respects to our three great-grandfathers. Xue shook her head without hesitation and said, Thank you for your kind intentions, fellow Daoist Hua. Since my senior brother is here, I won't go to the residence of Ardent Fire Mountain. I hope that fellow Daoist Hua can apologize to the three seniors. Oh, you're not coming with us? The fire Qilin was somewhat disappointed and said, My Ardent Inferno Mountain's residence is filled with world spirit qi. It's a good place to cultivate. No need. Xue shook her head again. Seeing this, Hua Furong quickly smiled and said, Since fellow Daoist Xiao has come, then little sister Xue will naturally follow fellow Daoist Xiao. However, fellow Daoist Xiao, my three great-grandfathers have always wanted to see you so that I can thank you for saving my life. If fellow Daoist Xiao has found a place to stay, please send me a message through your communication talisman. Xiao Hua could ignore the fire Qilin, but he couldn't ignore the three nascent soul cultivators of the Ardent Fire Mountain range. Since Hua Furong said so, Xiao Hua had no choice but to nod and say, Sure. After I find a place to stay in Haoming City, I'll immediately send a messaging talisman to fellow Daoist Hua. I also really want to pay a visit to the three nascent soul seniors. The fire Qilin nodded and said, All right, since that's the case, I'll first accompany fellow Daoist Xue to find the city guards of Haoming City and help fellow Daoist Xue find an excellent place to stay. Xiao Hua smiled and said, There's no need to trouble fellow Daoist Hua. I can find the city guards of Haoming City myself. Unexpectedly, the fire Qilin ignored Xiao Hua and only looked at Xue. Xue was helpless and could only shake her head and say, Fellow Daoist Hua, please return. I'll let senior brother arrange my residence. Oh, so it's like that. Then. I'm a little worried. The fire Qilin hesitated and said, I'll only be at ease if I help you do it. Xiao Hua finally understood what Xue meant when she said that the fire Qilin was full of etiquette. He clearly didn't understand the ways of the world. He and Xue had already clearly rejected him, but he didn't seem to understand and was blindly flattering. Cousin. Hua Furong's face was somewhat embarrassed. She pulled the fire Qilin's sleeve and said, fellow Daoist Shui, fellow Daoist Xiao can arrange it. You don't have to worry. It's already late. You and I had better hurry back to pay our respects to our great-grandfathers. Yes, I know. The Fire Chiline's face turned cold as he answered. He then said to Shui Shui, fellow Daoist Shui, when you find a residence, you must send me a communication talisman. Shui Shui was obviously non-committal. However, the Fire Chiline thought that Shui Shui had agreed. He beamed with joy and actually urged Hua Furong to return earlier. Hua Furong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She cupped her hands towards Xiao Hua and Shui Shui and urged her figure to fly away together with the Fire Chiline. Damn, this Fire Chiline is really somewhat interesting. Xiao Hua scratched his head, very speechless. Hehe, the Fire Chiline is a good person, but he's just a little pedantic. Shui Shui also pursed her lips and said with a smile. Let's go. Don't worry about others. Xiao Hua pulled Shui Shui's hand and said, after we find a residence, let's do something that this guy can't even dream of. Bah. Shui Shui spat lightly, but there was a smile on her face, and her eyebrows were rippling with spring. There were many abodes on the mountain range of Haoming City, and they were divided into different layers of the mountain range. Even the abodes that Foundation establishment cultivators could live in were of different sizes, and the concentration of heaven and earth spiritual qi was also different. Each abode had different spirit stones to pay according to the specific conditions. If a cultivator had a more special need, as long as they could pay the spirit stones, Haoming City would provide special things for the cultivator in the abode. Xiao Hua was different from before. There were many spirit stones in the space, so he found an abode with rich heaven and earth spiritual qi and an alchemy room among the abodes that Foundation establishment cultivators had the right to live in on the second layer. After handing over the spirit stones to the city guard and receiving the magic tablet and jade slip, Xiao Hua was not in the mood to stroll around Haoming City. He immediately took Shui Shui's hand and flew to the abode he chose according to the direction indicated on the jade slip, doing something that Fire Chiline couldn't even dream of. Xiao Hua couldn't wait to activate the magic tablet and rushed into the abode while holding Shui Shui's hand. Shui Shui's face was still red. She also missed Xiao Hua very much and longed for Xiao Hua's warmth, but looking at Xiao Hua's anxious appearance, she was a little embarrassed. She was even thinking about what she should do if Xiao Hua did something special. Should she refuse? Should she cater to him? Or should she compromise? However, when Shui Shui was hesitating, she was dumbfounded when she saw Xiao Hua's real action. What? Husband, you actually know alchemy? You also got the heavenly yin grass? Shui Shui was flabbergasted as she watched Xiao Hua take out the three-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace. Then, he skillfully turned on the earth fire in the alchemy room and took out the sky yin grass from the space as if he was presenting a treasure. Shui Shui couldn't even dream of it. Could you, Fire Chiline, dream of it? -8. Chapter 2036. Hee, more than that. Xiao Hua looked at Shui Shui's surprise and ecstasy. He felt that his life and death in the ink cloud black forest was worth it. He patted his forehead and smiled. Look at your husband's cultivation. Ah! Husband, you're already at the middle stage of Foundation establishment. Shui Shui really didn't dare to imagine. She came out with Xiao Hua, but they were both at the 12th level of qi refining. Just as they arrived at the Flame Forest Marsh, Xiao Hua unexpectedly entered the early stage of Foundation establishment. Moreover, he broke the blood seal set by the male thunder beast and saved Xiangyang and Zhuqing Yuan. Then, Xiao Hua showed his prowess at Tianmen Mountain and saved the bloodline of Tianmen Mountain. Then, he concentrated on the formation and helped Tianmen Mountain set up the formation. Shui Shui saw clearly that Xiao Hua didn't seem to cultivate much. Moreover, since they parted ways at Tianmen Mountain, it was less than a year. Even if 1 year at the Flame Forest Marsh and 3 years at Tianmen Mountain were added, it was less than 5 years. In just 5 years, Xiao Hua actually directly jumped from the early stage of Foundation establishment to the middle stage of Foundation establishment. Is this still the Xiao Hua who failed to build his foundation and failed to build his foundation after more than 10 years? What's wrong? My wife, are you shocked? Xiao Hua smiled proudly, your husband wanted to give you a surprise, but I didn't expect this surprise to be a bit big. Xue Xue's eyes flashed with surprise, but then there was a trace of shadow. She forced a smile and said, yes, this surprise is really big. So big that I didn't expect it even in my dreams. Immediately, Xue Xue hid her gloominess and showed a bright smile. She pointed at the heavenly yin grass and said, husband left me, could it be for this heavenly yin grass? This heavenly yin grass is a rare thing in the world, where did husband get it? Speaking of which, the story is really long. Xiao Hua said with a smile, your husband will heat up this pill furnace and take a good look at the pill formula for refining Ling Lei pill. Then, I'll slowly tell you. Okay, I'll listen to husband's instructions. Xue Xue was very sweet, her two limpid eyes seemed to stick to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua cast a few spells that Xue Xue didn't seem to recognize on the earth fire. The earth fire burned fiercely and wrapped around the three-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace. It slowly warmed up. Then, he took the jade slip from Xue Xue and read it carefully. Xue Xue looked at the cauldron warmed by the earth fire, feeling a little confused. Although Xue Xue didn't know how to refine pills, she had heard her master talk about it before. She had even dabbled in the teachings of the Thunderstorm Palace. Xue 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 Xue. Xue Xue. It wasn't that her heart was far away, but that her cultivation was too far away. It was so far away that she felt a sense of fear. It's done. Xiao Hua took out his divine sense from the jade slip and said with a smile, your husband looked at it again. It's more or less correct. Once the pill furnace is warmed up, your husband can refine Ling Lei pill for you. Husband, why don't you make a copy too? Xue 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 hid her gloominess and said with a smile, husband took a copy and can look at it anytime. It's inconvenient for me to give it to you. Xiao Hua scratched his head and said with a smile, there's no need. This is Xue family's secret. Your husband better not take it. He, isn't Xue family your family? Xue Xue pursed her lips and said with a smile, won't it be Xiao families in the future? That's right. How could your husband forget? Xiao Hua saw Xue Xue's seductive appearance and his heart itched. He reached out and hugged Xue Xue's plump body. He buried his mouth and nose in her chest, greedily inhaling that enchanting smell. Xue Xue was also moved. She reached out and hugged Xiao Hua's neck. The two were affectionate for a long time. Only then did Xue Xue ask while gasping for breath, husband Xiao, I feel very guilty. For me. I'm afraid you risked your life to pick the heavenly yin grass, right? Not at all. Xiao Hua said with a smile, speaking of which, there's a story. Moreover, your husband also obtained a lot of benefits from it. Then, Xiao Hua casually told the story of Mojiao Black Forest. Finally, he said, look, didn't your husband come back in one piece? Moreover, my cultivation has improved greatly. Hearing that Xue Xue met Mo Bao of Mojiao Black Forest, Xue Xue's face was already pale. She was clear about the dangers of Mojiao Black Forest. That Mo Bao was the nightmare of all cultivators. Xiao Hua actually received the help of the heavens and his cultivation improved greatly because of it. Although it was said that he was lucky, there were countless difficulties and endless love for her. If it wasn't for her own foundation, would Xiao Hua take such a risk? Although Xiao Hua didn't say anything else, Xue Xue easily thought of the other difficulties Xiao Hua encountered. Husband. Xue Xue couldn't help but hug Xiao Hua again. Her cherry lips slightly opened, and she kissed him. You really have to pay to reap the rewards. Xiao Hua didn't forget to sigh while enjoying himself. After a while, Xiao Hua thought of something again. He took out a jade slip from his bosom, immersed his divine sense in it, and wrote something in it. He handed it to Xue Xue and said, wife, your ancestral jade slip has recorded that even if you take the thunder pill, when awakening the thunder beast bloodline or building the foundation, there is still the danger of true qi breaking through the meridians. Your husband happens to have a special cultivation method here that can refine the meridians. You can start cultivating now. I hope it will be useful when the time comes. Xue Xue was stunned again. She also knew that this kind of cultivation method that could refine the meridians was definitely a secret of a cultivation sect. Moreover, the scale of this sect was definitely not inferior to the thunder controlling sect. However, Now she was already used to Xiao Hua's magical powers. She reached out and took it, and only smiled slightly and said, "Husband is considerate." Immediately, she immersed her divine sense in the jade slip and looked at the most simple and most basic dragon transformation secret art in it. Xiao Hua looked at Xue Xue's serious look, and the corner of his mouth smiled. This cultivation method was even more shallow than the one he gave Xiao Mao. After all, Xue Xue was about to build the foundation. It was too complicated, and she might not be able to comprehend it, let alone cultivate it. Immediately, Xiao Hua didn't waste time. He looked at the heat of the pill furnace, clapped his hands, and took out the corpses of the two thunder beasts. He made a gesture, took some things needed for the thunder pill from the corpses, and threw them into the pill furnace. After those things melted, he took some auxiliary spiritual herbs from the space and threw them in one by one. Then, he looked at Xue Xue, who was meditating with her eyes closed. He rubbed his hands, and 2 wisps of samadhi true fire flew into the earth fire. In an instant, the entire earth fire turned light purple, and within that light purple, there was a trace of crimson red. Seeing that the various spiritual herbs in the pill furnace began to melt, and impurities were extracted from the liquid, Xiao Hua's face showed a dignified look. He waved his hand and took out 2 jade bottles from the space. These 2 jade bottles contained the blood of the 2 thunder beasts. After being processed by Zhuo Qingyuan, they were put into the jade bottles. However, the blood of the thunder beasts used to refine the thunder pill was not simple primitive blood, but the true blood of the blood. Only this kind of true blood could stimulate the true blood in Xue Xue's blood. Only the true blood of the thunder beasts, which was divided into yin and yang attributes, could be adjusted by the heavenly yin grass. Xiao Hua closed his eyes, and very carefully meditated on the method to extract the true blood. Then, with a wave of his hand, he opened the seal on one of the jade bottles, and a ball of blood the size of a fist flew into the air. This ball of blood was very ordinary, and there was nothing special about it. However, with Xiao Hua's different methods, the entire ball of blood began to boil, like boiling water. Bubbles continuously rushed out from the ball of blood. When the bubbles disappeared, the ball of blood had shrunk by more than half. At this time, the ball of blood began to flicker with brilliance. In Xiao Hua's Buddhist sense, this flickering brilliance was precisely the faint formation of hair-thin lightning within the ball of blood. Quick! Xiao Hua chanted an incantation, and urged his magic power. A method that he had been forming for a long time struck the ball of blood. Following the incantation, strands of golden lightning were extracted from the ball of blood by Xiao Hua, and like countless small fish in an oval space, they wantonly swam. These lightning strands seemed to want to break through the confinement of this oval space, and rush into the heavenly Tao. However, every time they came into contact with the restriction, they could only be slightly repelled by the restriction. They simply could not cross half a step. Rise! Xiao Hua lightly reprimanded again. His hands were like plucking the strings of a zither, and small and delicate incantations struck the lightning strands. Those lightning strands in Xiao Hua's hands were like dancing, gradually gathering together. In less than half a cup of tea's time, a small lightning beast shape was formed by the lightning strand. Great! Seeing this, Xiao Hua was overjoyed. His forehead was almost covered in sweat. This extraction was far beyond his imagination. It was several times more complicated than when Xiong took out the Taiyi green light rod from the Taiyi green light rod. If Xiao Hua's magic power was not comparable to the middle Jindan stage, it might really be difficult. Go! Xiao Hua knew that this was the final critical moment, and he did not dare to be careless. His hands moved nimbly again, faster than before, almost bringing along an after-image. At this time, the place where he struck the incantation was no longer the ball of lightning strands, but the ball of blood again. Under Xiao Hua's incantation, the ball of blood quickly shrank, and was soon compressed to the size of a thumb. Moreover, the ball of blood was still trembling, as if there was still room to shrink under Xiao Hua's magic power. Pang! It seemed that Xiao Hua lost control of his magic power, and the ball of blood suddenly exploded like a firework. However, Xiao Hua's face did not have any depression, but instead showed a trace of joy. Xiao Hua's eyes stared at the exploding ball of blood, and his hands quietly stopped in mid-air. The moment all the ball of blood began to fall, his right hand suddenly stretched out, 5 fingers stretched out, and stretched forward. It was precisely above the ball of blood, and then, with great difficulty, he lifted it up. As if he was carrying a heavy object, Xiao Hua's hand actually sank slightly by an inch. -8. Chapter 2037. A strange thing happened. The falling droplets of blood froze in midair and began to tremble rapidly. Then, from each droplet of blood, a thread thinner than a hair was pulled out. As the blood thread was pulled out, the droplets of blood fell to the ground again. Xiao Hua waved his left hand, and a wisp of true samadhi fire appeared. It surrounded the droplets of blood, and all of them were burned to ashes, falling to the ground. Xiao Hua's right hand stretched out and then retracted, throwing it towards the lightning beast in the air that was formed by lightning threads. Seeing the blood thread approaching the lightning thread, Xiao Hua opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of true essence. The blood thread used the power of true essence to hit the lightning beast. Once it hit, the blood thread instantly wrapped around the lightning beast. A soft sound of thunder suddenly echoed in midair. It hit the lightning beast that had already turned gold and red. Seeing the lightning beast's wings and the faint lightning thread mixed with the red blood thread, it really seemed like it was going to soar into the sky. Great! Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He pointed at the 3-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace, and the lightning beast flew towards the furnace. In a moment, it entered the furnace. Such a divine skill, husband. I can't compare. Shue had opened her eyes at an unknown time. She looked at Xiao Hua's technique and muttered, wife, with your husband working hard for you, you can just obediently wait to build your foundation, Xiao Hua said with a smile. But at this moment, Xiao Hua frowned. He looked at the entrance of the cave and said unhappily, this fire Chelin is a bit boring. Why did he come here to harass us again? Since we are hiding from him, he should understand. Hearing this, Shue smiled bitterly. This person is a bit dull, even pedantic. If he wants to do something, even 9 heavenly dragons won't be able to pull him back. According to Hua Furong, he is only a few years older than her, but he didn't like to cultivate when he was young. At the beginning, Hua Furong was in the 5th layer of the aura refining realm, and he was still in the 1st layer. The 3 elders of the ardent fire mountain racked their brains, but he just ignored them and did his own thing. But later on, for some unknown reason, when Hua Furong reached the 7th level of qi refining, she suddenly came to a realization. As a result, her cultivation speed began to spiral out of control. Other than cultivating, she did nothing else. Lord Husband must have also seen it. Hua Furong has only just entered the foundation establishment realm, while the fire Chelin is already a mid-level foundation establishment realm existent. Speaking of this, Flaming Hibiscus also bitterly smiled. Actually, I've only seen him a few times, but he began to follow me. He didn't say anything and just looked at me. In the beginning, this concubine still nodded politely. Every time he saw this, he would be wild with joy. Later on, when this concubine understood what was going on, she no longer paid attention to him. But, he is still pestering me. Shue said embarrassedly, husband, this concubine has never said a word to him. Every time, Hua Hibiscus was present. My wife. Xiao Hua said with a smile, I didn't say anything. How could your husband not believe you? In this Dawn Rain continent, there are probably not many who can be more handsome than your husband. Saying this, Xiao Hua flicked his hair, looking around with a narcissistic look. Phut, Shue laughed. Xiao Hua said again, it's just that your husband is busy right now. I've just finished refining the male lightning beast's true blood, and I still need the female lightning beast's true blood. Only after these things are done can I go see the fire Chelin. Let this guy stand there first. Okay. Shue smiled sweetly and went to comprehend the dragon transformation art. After waiting for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, Xiao Hua also successfully extracted the female lightning beast's true blood. Immediately, Xiao Hua reached out his hand and took out the heavenly yin grass from the space. With a point of his finger, the stem of the heavenly yin grass was cut off from the root and thrown into the pill furnace. The roots of the heavenly yin grass were also thrown back into the space and let the puppet carefully plant it. Xiao Hua actually wanted to cultivate the heavenly yin grass first, but he was afraid that something would go wrong and delay Xue Xue, so he left it behind and tried to plant it. When the stem of the heavenly yin grass fell into the pill furnace, under the tempering of the samadhi true fire, it immediately turned into a spiritual liquid. This spiritual liquid was clearly different from the previous spiritual herbs. It actually had two colors, one was pure white, the other was fiery red, the same color as the yin and yang of the ink cloud black forest secret area. These two colors were clearly separated and did not seem to mix with each other. Wonderful! Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through the liquid. At the same time he praised in his heart, he also doubted whether he could grow the heavenly yin grass in his space. This kind of miraculous spiritual herb could only be grown in a special place. Xiao Hua rubbed his hands, and the two lightning beasts' true blood that had been spreading their wings and wanting to fly together were pushed into the pill furnace by Xiao Hua. Immediately after, another hand seal was cast. However, he saw that the pill liquid in the pill furnace was pouring down onto the two true blood from top to bottom. The true blood actually softened once again and seeped into the pill liquid. As his divine sense swept through, the phantoms of the male and female lightning beasts spreading their wings in the pill liquid were vivid and lifelike. Good. Xiao Hua praised himself first. He knew that even if the Ling Lei Dan could be formed, he would have to refine it again to quench the impurities in the elixir. In the end, he would be able to condense the true blood of the male and female lightning beasts together to form the Ling Lei Dan. Hearing Xiao Hua's praise, Xue Xue opened her eyes again and said with a smile, "How is it? Did it succeed?" Xiao Hua said with a smile, "How can it be that simple? This Ling Lei pill probably needs to be refined for 81 days before it can be completed. Now, we've only done some superficial things. Fortunately, I heard from Master that the more precious a pill is, the longer it needs to be refined. The 81 days for the Ling Lei pill is not too long." Xue Xue nodded and said, "Moreover, the auction in Haoming City is also held during this period. We can kill two birds with one stone." "That's right." Xiao Hua nodded. He had some expectations in his heart. Yes, when Xiao Hua was in the Qi refinement realm, he had always been using the fire marrow flame crystal and the Big Dipper divine fist to temper his bones. Every time he used the Big Dipper divine fist, there would always be a cold current tempering all the bones in his body inch by inch. However, ever since Xiao Hua entered the Foundation establishment realm, or maybe after Xiao Hua absorbed the fire origin, the Big Dipper divine fist's effect became increasingly small. Previously, Xiao Hua did not care about it and thought that it was just a matter of cultivation. He did not practice it enough. However, after Mojiao Black Forest, Xiao Hua broke through to the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. His Dharma body, meridians, and cultivation technique were all profound, but in terms of tempering his bones, it was far inferior to the fire marrow flame crystal from before. During this period of time, Xiao Hua had been pondering. It was only a few days ago that Xiao Hua suddenly came to a realization. When he saw the light reverse flight's demonstration of the light evasion technique, the bone tempering he saw was not just a simple Big Dipper divine fist, but several different methods. Every method, the bones would change into a different color. In other words, each method could only be used for one color. At the fire origin stage, he used the Big Dipper divine fist, and after the fire origin, it should be the earth origin. At this stage, the Big Dipper divine fist should not be used anymore. Xiao Hua must find another method to temper his bones. Otherwise, even if he used up all the earth crystal yarrow milk, he would not be able to complete the second stage of tempering his bones. -8. Chapter 2038. Therefore, Xiao Hua came to Haoming City to look for Xue Xue, and to take advantage of the Blazing Fire Mountain's 3 elders to enter a high-level auction to obtain a better bone-tempering method. However, could there be a bone-tempering method? Xiao Hua really didn't know. There were many body-tempering cultivators in the Daybreak continent, and they all used body-tempering methods. Bone-tempering? Who would do that for no reason? Not using time on the Great Tao? However, Xiao Hua knew his own matters. In essence, all of his cultivation was based on the space behind his head. Furthermore, the light reversal within the space was the most important. This light reversal should be his number one priority. Since there was only the cultivation method of the light evasion, he should first master the light evasion. He was no longer too worried about basic cultivation methods. His knowledge and experience had already far surpassed that of aura refining cultivators, and his cultivation level had also far surpassed that of foundation building cultivators of the same realm. Under these circumstances, it would be very easy for him to find cultivation methods to advance his cultivation. Spiritual plants, medicinal pills, and so on were even less of a concern to him. Buddhism, Confucianism, dragonization art, sword cultivation, phoenix battle body, and even soul cultivation, although they were all divine abilities comparable to Taoism, in Xiao Hua's eyes, they couldn't compare to light escape. Of course, Xiao Hua longed to try these divine abilities, but this would have to wait until he succeeded in using Master Brightsword's Sword Heart Origin Seed secret technique. Seeing that the pill furnace had already stabilized and the 3 medicinal liquids were arranged in a straight line, quietly tempering in the furnace fire, Xiao Hua knew this stage would probably last for more than 10 days. Therefore, he set up a rabbit formation and concealed the entire pill furnace. Then, he followed Xue to the front of the Immortal's Cave. The front of the Immortal's Cave was the reception area, and the space wasn't small. Xiao Hua and Xue came here and smiled at each other. They each found a praying mat and sat on it, cultivating without mentioning it. As for the fire Qilin outside the Immortal's Cave, he waited for more than half a day. The summoning talisman he sent was right in front of him, but he didn't enter the cave at all. He knew in his heart that Xiao Hua didn't welcome him, but he really didn't seem to be discouraged, as Xue said. He even encouraged himself in his heart, "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Female cultivators are all shy, and it's not easy to say something. An outstanding female cultivator like Xue is even more so like this. If I leave now, how can I let her see my determination? When she left yesterday, didn't she still smile at me? Doesn't this mean that she has feelings for me? Although this Xiao Hua is her senior martial brother and can be considered to be in a favorable position, but I didn't know Xue before, so I can't take the lead in her heart. But now that I know Xue, I can't neglect her. I didn't appear before Xue, but from now on, I will appear every day. I will definitely let her know who is the most suitable for her, who is the one who misses her the most." After waiting for more than 2 hours, Xiao Hua's divine sense swept out and saw that the fire Qilin was still there. He couldn't help but frown. Facing such a strange person, Xiao Hua really didn't know how to deal with him. The fire Qilin was a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator in name, and he was also a direct descendant of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain. It was impossible for him to casually kill him. At this moment, another person flew over from not far away. That person didn't wait for the entrance of the cave before shouting, "Oh, cousin, so you're here. Great-grandfather is looking for you. He's just short of sending you a messaging talisman." The person who had arrived was none other than Hua Furong. "Oh, why is great-grandfather looking for me?" The fire Qilin was puzzled. "I already paid my respects this morning, but I didn't see him say anything." "You'd better go quickly." Hua Furong curled her lips. "You'll be in trouble if he sends you a messaging talisman." "Oh, okay." The fire Qilin seemed to be afraid of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain. It looked at Xiao Hua's cave with some reluctance before turning around and flying away. After the fire Qilin was far away, Hua Furong sighed and said loudly, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, little sister Xue, please open the cave. I have something to ask of you." Xiao Hua naturally heard her. He took out a magic tablet and opened the restriction, then he and Xue went forward to welcome her. Hua Furong cupped her hands from afar and said with an apologetic smile, "My cousin is always so reckless. I've let fellow Daoist Xiao see a joke." "Oh, is that so? Where is fellow Daoist Hua?" Xiao Hua pretended to be surprised. Hua Furong smiled and didn't mention the fire Qilin again. After entering the cave and taking a seat, she said, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, I came today to ask fellow Daoist Xiao to come to my Ardent Fire Mountains cave tomorrow. The 3 elders are very concerned about fellow Daoist Xiao's kindness and want to thank you in person." When Xiao Hua heard this, he quickly waved his hand and said with a smile, "Fellow Daoist Hua is too polite. It was just a small matter that day. Anyone who saw the heavenly demon sect's actions would have to intervene. I don't dare to take credit for it. Moreover, fellow Daoist Hua brought my junior sister to Haoming City and protected her safety. You've already repaid that so-called kindness. It's better not to mention this matter again." Then, he thought for a moment and said, "If fellow Daoist Hua feels that you owe me, you can just give me a passage talisman on the day of the auction." "That's natural," Hua Furong said with a smile. "Since fellow Daoist Xiao has come to Haoming City, you can't not follow my ardent fire mountain to participate in the auction for nascent soul cultivators. That's a good opportunity to broaden your horizons. However, the auction for nascent soul cultivators doesn't need any passage talismans. Nascent soul cultivators can participate every day, and they can even bring in 5 disciples." "Oh, so it's like that." Xiao Hua scratched his head. It seemed that he had no choice but to pay a visit to the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. It seems that a nascent soul senior from the Imperial Thunder sect has also come. However, he's not near the Ardent Fire Mountain's abode. Hua Furong suddenly thought of something and reminded, "If fellow Daoist Xiao has the time, shouldn't you also pay a visit?" "Hehe, I'm just a pawn of the Imperial Thunder sect. I'm afraid that a nascent soul senior wouldn't recognize me at all." Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Although paying a visit is a kind of etiquette, I can't pay a visit without a nascent soul senior's permission, right? Since that's the case, I'd better not ask for a snub." "Hehe, that's exactly the case." Hua Furong pursed her lips and said, "When my 3 great-grandfathers arrived at Haoming City, they sent one messaging talisman after another. To tell you the truth, fellow Daoist Xiao, my great-grandfathers didn't even look at a single one of them. They were all crushed by us for fun. Some aura-refining children even competed to see who could crush the most number of messaging talismans every day." Hua Furong patted her hand and took out a palm-sized token from her storage pouch. She handed it over and said, "This is the token of my Ardent Fire Mountain. It was personally given to me by my second great-grandpa. Fellow Daoist Xiao, if you take it, you'll be able to pass through Haoming City without any obstructions." Looking at the flame-like token in front of him, Xiao Hua knew that this was the face of a nascent soul cultivator, so he definitely couldn't refuse. Thus, he reached out to take it and said with a smile, "Thank you, fellow Daoist Hua. Since fellow Daoist is so considerate, as a junior, it's only right for me to pay a visit to the seniors." Hua Furong was overjoyed and said, "Today, my Ardent Fire Mountain is holding a small banquet. If fellow Daoist Xiao has the time, can you go?" Xiao Hua glanced at Xue Xue. Xue Xue also smiled and said, "The 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain are famous nascent soul seniors in my state of Shi. I've always been following Big Sister Furong in Haoming City, but I haven't had the opportunity to meet the 3 seniors. Now is the perfect opportunity, so I also want to meet the 3 seniors." "All right." Xiao Hua actually knew that the opportunity to meet nascent soul seniors was very important, especially if he could get some pointers. Even if it was casual, it would be of great benefit to his cultivation. Unfortunately, wasn't there a fire Qilin here? Otherwise, Xiao Hua would have already gone without hesitation. Since he was willing to meet Xue Xue, how could Xiao Hua not go? "Great." Hua Furong clapped her hands and said, "I often mention fellow Daoist Xiao in front of my great-grandpa. Presumably, there will be some benefits for fellow Daoist Xiao this time, right?" "Hehe, that's the best. This Xiao likes benefits the most." Xiao Hua's face was full of smiles. Xiao Hua, Xue Xue, and Hua Furong left the cave and sealed the cave with a magic tablet. Only then did they follow Hua Furong all the way to a high place. Xiao Hua naturally hadn't been to the residences of Golden Core and nascent soul cultivators. Along the way, when they passed by different areas, Haoming City's city guards would kindly remind them, but they definitely wouldn't forcefully stop them. Hua Furong ignored them and only took out the Ardent Fire Mountain's token and shook it. Without waiting for the city guards to see if they could see it clearly, they immediately rushed past the city guards. Xiao Hua followed behind Hua Furong, looking at the residences of Gold Core cultivators and nascent soul cultivators with great interest. He thought to himself, this Haoming city is really thoughtful. The concentration of heaven and earth spirit chi in different areas of the mountain range is absolutely different. The spirit grasses and spirit trees in each area are also poles apart. The style of the Immortals' Cave is even more different. If this young master didn't come up to take a look, I really wouldn't have known the secret. Stop. Just when Xiao Hua was looking left and right to find something interesting, a divine sense swept past and locked onto the three of them. Who is it? Why would Hua Furong care about this? In front of Xiao Hua, she was still fine, but in front of other people, her fiery temper was immediately born. She released her divine sense without hesitation and collided with that divine sense. Fellow Daoist Hua Tilda Xiao Hua was slightly startled and promptly called out, "Don't be rash." Of course, the other party was in the late stage of the foundation building realm, and his divine sense was much stronger than Hua Furong's. Hua Furong's action was tantamount to striking a stone with an egg. However, when Xiao Hua reminded him, he came to a realization. This was the residence of a nascent soul cultivator, and this foundation building cultivator was either a city guard or a disciple of a nascent soul cultivator here. Hua Furong was a disciple of Ardent Fire Mountain, so how could she lose face for Ardent Fire Mountain? Naturally, if it was a foundation building cultivator who broke into this place, Hua Furong would be even more arrogant. Sure enough, when that cultivator saw Hua Furong's reaction, he immediately withdrew his divine sense and said warmly, "May I know which cultivation group fellow Daoist is from?" Xiao Hua didn't release his divine sense. By the time he looked into the distance, an old man wearing the armor of a city guard was flying towards them with two early-stage foundation building city guards. These three people all had swords hanging from their waist. This lady is a disciple of Ardent Fire Mountain. Have you all never seen me before? Hua Furong didn't care who they were and said without any trace of politeness. -8. Chapter 2039. Hehe, I was wrong. The old man slapped his forehead and came to a realization. I went to visit Elder Hua a few days ago, so I should know what you look like. Alas, it's all because this place was a little messy just now, which angered the nascent soul senior here. That's why I was so careful. Please forgive me, Miss Hua. Although Hua Furong had a bad temper, she was still a descendant of a famous sect. Seeing the old man apologize, she felt embarrassed and quickly bowed. I'm Hua Furong from the Blazing Fire Mountain. I've offended you just now. May I know when fellow Daoist met my great-grandfather? I don't seem to have seen you before. It's fine, it's fine. The old man flicked his sleeves and said, I'm Yu Chen, the new captain of the city guards of the Blazing Fire Mountain. Countless cultivators visit Elder Hua's cave every day. How could fellow Daoist Hua remember me? Hey, this is the captain of the city guards who replaced Shang Qinghe. Xiao Hua looked at the old man and thought, he looks much more humble than Shang Qinghe. However, I wonder if Liu Cheng's material for refining tools has been delivered to him. Hee. So it's Captain Yu from the Blazing Fire Mountain. I've been disrespectful. Hua Furong smiled and looked around. She asked curiously, this should be the cave of Master Qing Yang from the Mosang Mountain. His temper has always been good. Why did he get angry? Alas, it's because a few foundation establishment cultivators wanted to make friends with Master Qing Yang. Not only did they send a communication talisman, they even sneaked to his cave and wanted to visit him. Yu Chen smiled bitterly. You said that the rules of the Blazing Fire Mountain were clear, but they just wanted to take the risk. I can punish them according to the city rules, but they have a sect after all, so I can't really kill them. Fellow Daoist Hua, you must know that the city guards of the Blazing Fire Mountain only stopped them, but never stopped them. Yes, I understand. Hua Furong smiled and said, Master Qing Yang is famous for his good temper. He won't really kill them. So these foundation establishment cultivators wanted to find him. Hehe, that's right. They all want to go to the auction to find some good stuff, but they don't even think about it. Even if they do find something good, what do they have that would catch the eye of a nascent soul cultivator? Yu Chen nodded and then cupped his hands. Fellow Daoist Hua, please. This old man was just complaining a little. I've made a fool of myself. A lot of cultivators went to the Ardent Fire Mountain's Immortals Cave today. I'm afraid there must be something going on, right? Hua Furong smiled and said, yes, the 3 old ancestors invited their good friends. These 2 fellow Taoists from the Imperial Thunder Sect are also my good friends. That's why they followed me to the banquet. Oh, so you are disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect, sorry for the disrespect. Yu Chen hurriedly saluted Xiao Hua and Xue Xue. Xiao Hua and Xue Xue naturally returned the salute and introduced themselves. Your sect's Reverend Miu is on the other side of Haoming City. This old man saw him a few months ago. Yu Chen said with a smile. Kanlei Palace's Daoist Miu? Joy appeared on Xiao Hua's face as he said, this Xiao has already come out to gain experience for several years. It's been a long time since I've seen him. I'll pay him a visit tomorrow. Yes, this is the filial piety of us junior disciples. Yu Chen nodded and told him where Daoist Miu lived, then cupped his hands and flew away with the 2 city guards. After Yu Chen left, Hua Furong said with a smile, the city guards of Haoming City really have it tough. They don't dare to get too angry even when facing cultivators with lower cultivation than them. If it was me, I would have thrown a fireball at him. Who cares who he is? Hehe, so Big Sister Hua is a disciple of Ardent Fire Mountain, and Senior Yu Chen is a city guard of Haoming City. Xue Xue pursed her lips and laughed. Let's go. Hua Hibiscus covered her mouth and laughed. She flew up again, and in the time it took to brew a cup of tea, she flew to a brightly lit place. This was clearly an Immortal's Cave, but it was clearly much more imposing than Xiao Hua's Immortal's Cave. A jade door, several dozen meters in size, stood tall among the mountain rocks. The door was exquisitely carved, and various patterns appeared. There were no fluctuations of magic power. In front of the door, there were several children dressed in brocade robes, holding bright red lanterns in their hands. They seemed to be welcoming guests. In front of them, there were a dozen or so Foundation establishment cultivators scattered about. They were looking at the door of the Immortal's Cave, presumably wanting to pay a visit to the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain. When those children saw Hua Furong, they all smiled and said, Martial Aunt Furong, Martial Aunt Furong. 2 of them, who looked very similar, rushed out and shouted, Martial Aunt, today, the 2 of us have crushed 32 messaging talismans, and the winner hasn't been decided. What do you think we should do? This. Hua Furong pretended to be troubled. If the winner can't be decided, then I can't give you the medicinal pills. While they were talking, one of the boys suddenly flew towards Hua Furong's side. The other boy's face was filled with shame, anger, and regret. That was because a communication talisman flew over from Xiao Hua's side and landed in the boy's hand. Just as Hua Furong had said, the boy didn't even look at the communication talisman. With a pinch of his hand, the communication talisman was crushed. Ha ha ha, I'm first, I'm first. That child cheerfully shouted in midair. However, at this time, a slightly old voice came from the messaging talisman. Hua Zhishan, this old man is Lan Yu from Xianla sect. Tomorrow at noon, I have something to discuss with you. Ah? When the boy heard these words, his dancing body came to a halt in midair. The smile on his little face also froze. Very quickly, it was replaced by a mournful expression. Clearly, he was about to cry. Martial uncle, save me. Of course, he directly called out the name of Hua Zhishan of the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain and called himself Lan Yu from Xianla sect. Wasn't he Daoist Master Lan Yu from Meng Country's Xianla sect? He was also an early nascent soul cultivator's messaging talisman, but it was actually crushed by a gatekeeper of Ardent Fire Mountain. How could a small child bear this kind of responsibility? Hua Furong saw this and sighed in her heart. She understood very well that this wasn't just a messaging talisman. It was a greeting from a nascent soul cultivator. That child should have delivered it to the 3 elders in a complete and respectful manner. To crush it so rashly, it really showed that Ardent Fire Mountain didn't have any rules. However, Hua Furong was also annoyed. She couldn't blame the child. As long as a nascent soul cultivator came to visit, they would first send a disciple to deliver a name card. It wasn't as simple as using a messaging talisman. This messaging talisman was somewhat rude. Don't be afraid. Martial Aunt will take this messaging talisman inside. Hua Furong reached out and took it. She smiled and said to the child, however, today's medicinal pills are gone. Many thanks, Martial Aunt. The child's face immediately beamed with joy. As long as Grandmaster Grandfather doesn't blame me, this little one is happy. -8. Chapter 2040. I've let fellow Daoist Xiao see a joke. Hua Furong held the summoning talisman in her hand and said to Xiao Hua very apologetically, my blazing fire mountain's rules are strict, but I can't bear it. Xiao Hua said with a smile, fellow Daoist Hua is so kind. How could you be wrong? I actually feel that this is very heartwarming. Hua Furong was very happy and said with a smile, I'm already satisfied that fellow Daoist Xiao doesn't see a joke. I'm a bit arrogant with such praise. Seeing Hua Furong restraining her temper and talking to Xiao Hua, the group of children was curious and looked at Xiao Hua without blinking. Fellow Daoist Xiao, little sister Xue, please, Hua Furong said and led Xiao Hua and Xue into the courtyard. Behind the courtyard was a restriction. Although there was a bead curtain, it wasn't a screen wall but a spacious corridor behind the bead curtain. The corridor was quite peaceful and didn't seem to be chaotic. Just as Hua Furong stepped into the corridor, she saw a person walking quickly from the other end of the corridor. As soon as he saw Hua Furong, he shouted, Furong, when did grandfather call me? How could you lie to big brother? Xiao Hua frowned. Wasn't this person the fire Qilin? What a coincidence. Just as he stepped into the blazing fire mountain's immortal cave, he immediately ran into the person he didn't want to see the most. Oh, fellow Daoist Xue. Xiao Hua and Xue also turned into the corridor and were immediately seen by the fire Qilin. How could the fire Qilin still have time to complain about Hua Furong? His face was full of surprise and he quickly walked over and bowed very seriously. A few days without seeing fellow Daoist Xue is like 3 years. Cough cough tilde Xiao Hua took a step forward and blocked the somewhat embarrassed Xue behind him. He cupped his hands and said, fellow Daoist Hua, we seem to have just met yesterday, right? How many days have we not seen each other? Is that so? The fire Qilin only glanced at Xiao Hua and immediately looked at Xue. I've always been with fellow Daoist Xue. Although we haven't seen each other for a day, it feels like we haven't seen each other for several days. Xue was greatly embarrassed and said in a low voice, Senior Hua, be careful with your words. When have I been with you all this time? Why not? The fire Qilin was somewhat anxious. He pointed at fire hibiscus and said, hasn't fellow Daoist Xue been with iron hibiscus for the past 100 days? Xue breathed a sigh of relief and glanced at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua saw that the fire Qilin only had eyes for Xue and was truly speechless. If the fire Qilin had made any moves, Xiao Hua could have used it as a pretext to make a fuss, or even leave in a huff. But this guy had the appearance of an infatuated child, and didn't even say a single unreasonable word. Xiao Hua really didn't know what to do. Fellow Daoist Hua tilde Xiao Hua smiled. He held Xue's hand and said with a smile, fellow Daoist Hua, my humble junior sister was taken care of by the 2 fellow Daoists Hua. This Xiao is very grateful. Today, I specially came to your esteemed residence to thank you. It's nothing. Fellow Daoist Xue's appearance is like a celestial being, and her character is noble and pure. She's just like a true immortal that has been banished to the mortal world. We mortals have to protect her with our lives. The fire Qilin didn't have Xiao Hua in its eyes at all. It only stared at Xue as it spoke with sincerity. Cousin. At the side, Hua Furong had an awkward expression. She managed to get the fire Qilin to come back with great difficulty. She didn't expect that she would bump into them the moment she returned to the Immortal's cave. Moreover, she was very clear about the relationship between Xue and Xiao Hua. Naturally, she also talked to the fire Qilin in detail. Unfortunately, the fire Qilin didn't listen at all. She was also helpless. Great-grandfather wants to see fellow Daoist Xiao. We should hurry and go in, Hua Furong reminded. Hey! Then let fellow Daoist Xiao go in. Why does fellow Daoist Xue have to follow? The fire Qilin was stunned. Great-grandfather is entertaining those snobbish people. What fun is there inside? Fellow Daoist Shui might as well go with Furong to see the lovely flowers. Right now, they should be blooming. It's the most gorgeous time. Senior Hui, Junior wants to accompany senior brother in. If you don't want to go, you can admire the lovely flowers by yourself. Shui leaned her body against Xiao Hua and smiled apologetically. Oh, since that's the case, I will also accompany fellow Daoist Shui in. Although the fire Chelin was disappointed, it still smiled. Damn it, Xiao Hua almost wanted to use his hand to slap his forehead. At this moment, an amiable voice resounded. Furong, Chelin? Who are the two of you talking to? Hua Furong's face reddened. She promptly smiled and said, Great-grandfather, what are you saying? Didn't you ask the boy to invite fellow Daoist Xiao here? Oh, Xiao Hua, I know. Let this child come in quickly. The voice was slightly stunned, but it was still amiable. Hua Furong's face showed an apologetic expression. Fellow Daoist Xiao, you see, great-grandfather is also old. I reckon that he drank a lot of spiritual wine last night. He even forgot what he said just now. It's fine, Xiao Hua smiled and said, I reckon that right now, the banquet is full of nascent soul and golden core seniors. I'm already satisfied to be able to see Elder Hua. Fellow Daoist, please. As Hua Furong spoke, she glanced at the fire Chelin. That guy's gaze was still on Shui's face. He didn't have the awareness of being a senior and leading the way at the front. Without any other choice, Hua Furong could only lead Xiao Hua and Shui. The fire Chelin followed behind them and walked through the long corridor. As soon as Xiao Hua and the others turned around the long corridor, their eyes immediately lit up. A burst of music filled their ears. They saw that this was a hall that was several hundred feet in size. The decorations were extremely gorgeous, and all kinds of strange patterns covered the entire hall. Even the floor was paved with huge pieces of spirit stones. On top of the spirit stones, Xiao Hua first saw a dozen or so beautiful smiling female cultivators with graceful waist. Each and every one of these female cultivators wore strange clothes. Most of their snow-white skin was exposed, and their arms and legs were casually dancing. Their limbs exuded a kind of lazy feeling. After Xiao Hua's gaze paused for a moment between these dancers, he looked at his surroundings again. Around him were some jade tables that cultivators often used to entertain guests. At this time, they were divided into 3 places. There were 5 tables at the head, and there were 5 tables at the left and right side. Behind the table at the center of the head was a tall nascent soul cultivator wearing a fiery red Daoist robe. This cultivator's face was very strange. His forehead was bulging, his nose was sunken, his mouth was bloody, and his ears were strangely small. His entire face was very similar to Hua Hibiscus and Hua Chelin. Behind his left hand was a nascent soul cultivator's table, and behind his right hand was a nascent soul cultivator's table. There were also 2 nascent soul cultivators wearing fiery red Daoist robes. They looked almost exactly the same as him. No wonder. When Xiao Hua saw the appearance of the 3 people, he immediately understood. Previously, he had suspected that Hua Hibiscus also knew a secret technique to deceive the world like him and could change her appearance like Cai Zhuoxia. Now, it seemed that this was her true appearance. Seeing Xiao Hua's group of 4 enter, everyone in the main hall very naturally swept their divine senses over them. There was no need to mention Hua Hibiscus and Hua Chelin. Their faces were their signature. Who didn't know them? They swept their divine senses over Xiao Hua and Shui a few times. However, when they saw that they were Foundation Establishment and Qi Refining disciples, they withdrew their divine senses. Only the Foundation Establishment cultivator on the right had a shocked expression on his face. Naturally, the one sitting in the center was the eldest of the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain, Hua Zhishan. However, even though he was called the eldest, he wasn't that big of a deal. The second elder, Hua Yishui, and the third elder, Hua Pekong, followed closely behind him. They were the triplets' twin brothers. Since young, these triplets' minds were connected and their aptitudes were the same. Among the disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain, they were known as geniuses. And the most interesting thing was that these three people's cultivation advancement was also the same. Their breakthroughs in foundation establishment, gold core, and nascent soul realms were definitely not more than 10 days apart. In the country of Shi, the ardent fire mountain was neither big nor small. It was precisely because of these three brothers that their strength was ranked very high. The most amazing thing was that in the present day, when the ancient formations had been lost, the three elders of the ardent fire mountain somehow managed to obtain a combination of three people. The three of them together could fight against 6 nascent soul cultivators. With this, the reputation of the three elders of the ardent fire mountain became even more resounding in the country of Shi. After the group of dancers retreated, Hua Furong brought Xiao Hua and Xue Xue to the front. She bowed and said, "Great-grandfather Tilda, this is the Xiao Hua that the boy often mentioned to you." It was fellow Daoist Xiao who saved the boy from the evil clutches of the heavenly demon sect that day. Junior's Imperial Thunder sects Xiao Hua and Xue Xue greet Senior Hua. Xiao Hua didn't dare to neglect and pulled Xue Xue forward to greet him. "Ian, get up." Hua Shan smiled. The pockmarks on his face became even brighter. With a wave of his hand, a great force stopped Xiao Hua and Xue Xue's figures. He smiled and said, "Who is your master? Is it someone this old man knows?" Junior's master is Thunderclap Palace's helplessness. Xiao Hua smiled apologetically. "I'm afraid Senior Hua doesn't know. Junior's master is Thunderclap Palace's Zun Ming." Xue Xue also said, "Oh, Thunderclap Palace's Thunderclap spiritual master. This old man has heard of him but has never seen him before." Hua Shan smiled. "Fellow Daoist helplessness, I really don't know him. What is his cultivation level?" Junior's master is at the late stage of foundation establishment. Xiao Hua carefully said. "Only at the late stage of foundation establishment?" Hua Shan on the left shouted. No wonder this old man was pondering just now. "All right, Senior Hua knows. Junior has also just reached foundation establishment." "Master, of course it's impossible for him to be at golden core." Xiao Hua bitterly smiled. "Ian, since ancient times, don't ask about a hero's origin. As long as you have cultivation and strength, who cares about your origin?" Another Hua Shan said, "You saved our Furong, so you have fate with our ardent fire mountain. Come, arrange a seat for Xiao Hua." "Yes," the distant ardent fire mountain disciple replied, placing a table at the end of the left and placing spirit wine, spirit fruits, and other things on it. At this time, Hua Shan smiled. Come, Xiao Hua, greet the two seniors beside this old man." As he spoke, he pointed to the left. "This is Lan Li sect's Shen Yunzi." Xiao Hua understood Hua Shan's meaning and quickly stepped forward, bowing deeply. "Junior Xiao Hua greets Senior Shen Yunzi." En tilde Shen Yunzi slightly nodded, ignoring him. Hua Shan smiled. "Fellow Daoist Shen Yunzi, if you meet Xiao Hua in the future, please take care of him for this old man's sake." -8. Chapter 2041. Well said. Shen Yunzi nodded again. Xiao Hua didn't dare to neglect Shen Yunzi and said happily, "Thank you Senior Shen Yunzi. This is Huangdao sect's Daoist Xue Mo." The nascent soul cultivator on Hua Shan's right smiled. "Daoist Xue Mo, please take care of him in the future." Junior Xiao Hua greets Senior Xue Mo. Xiao Hua bowed again. "En, get up." Daoist Xue Mo waved his hand. Imperial Thunder sect is a big sect, not something Ardent Fire Mountain, Blue Li sect, and Huangdao sect can compare to. Hihi, Xiao Hua is just a junior. Although he has Imperial Thunder sect's background, there will always be times when he meets difficulties. If you two fellow Taoists can meet him, it will be as easy as lifting a hand. Hua Shan smiled and raised his cup. "Come, fellow Taoists, please tilde Shen Yunzi and Daoist Xue Mo raised their cups and said." Xiao Hua was quite surprised to see Hua Shrouded Mountain talking to the two nascent soul cultivators. He thought it would be great if he could meet the two nascent soul cultivators and report their names. Who would have thought it would be like this? Hua Shan must love this junior named Hua Furong very much. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua didn't see Hua Furong's shocked expression, or he would be even more surprised. When Huozhi Shan and the others put down their cups, a mid-gold core cultivator on the left stood up. It was Lan Li Sect's Bai Yu. He smiled and said, Junior congratulates Senior Huo's nephew for being able to escape from Heavenly Demon Sect's evil hand. However, after listening to what Senior Huo said just now, I don't understand. Oh. Does nephew have any questions? Huozhi Shan looked at Shen Yunzi and asked Bai Yu. Bai Yu said, Junior has a disciple who just entered Foundation establishment. However, in this Junior's opinion, this Junior's disciple's cultivation is even inferior to Ardent Fire Mountain's Hua Furong. Furthermore, Xiao Hua just said that he had also just built his foundation. How could he possibly save Hua Furong? Moreover, according to Elder Hua, Heavenly Demon Sect has 3 Foundation Establishment cultivators. Xiao Hua also has a Qi Refinement junior sister. How could he save Hua Furong? It would be good enough if he didn't run away, right? Bai Yu said again, if Xiao Hua and his junior sister saved Hua Furong, then turned around and left, then Junior would not have anything to suspect. Moreover, he only came to Haoming City to look for Senior Hua after nearly a year with junior sister. Senior Hua has to be on guard against Xiao Hua and Shue's intentions. Senior Bai, what do you mean by this? Before Xiao Hua could speak, the Fire Qilin walked over from behind Shue and said with a frown, Fellow Daoist Shue came to Haoming City with Furong several months ago. How could it be like what you said? Besides, with fellow Daoist Shue's character, why would he do such a dirty thing? Bai Yu was slightly startled, then he smiled and said, I don't know the details. I only heard Elder Hua asking about the whereabouts of the Heavenly Demon Sect. Only then did I know about this. I'm just stating facts. I'm somewhat doubtful about Xiao Hua's cultivation. That's just a wild guess. Fellow Daoist Shue would never do that. The Fire Qilin retorted without hesitation. Qilin Tilda Hua Pakong stopped him. Bai Yu is your senior, you can't be so rude. Besides, you're usually rather refined. Why are you so reckless today? He can talk about anyone, but he can't talk about fellow Daoist Shue. The Fire Qilin said stiffly. You child. Hua Paishue smiled. Bai Yu is just reminding you. It's nothing. Even reminding is not allowed. Damn it. Xiao Hua had a good impression of the Fire Qilin. This guy seems to be somewhat infatuated. Even I feel ashamed of my inferiority. Hua Paishue was somewhat helpless. He knew the Fire Qilin's temper. He could only smile and point at the table. Furong, accompany Shue to rest over there. Yes. Hua Furong didn't dare to disobey. She glanced at Bai Yu and said, at that time, I was captured by the Heavenly Demon Sect disciples and was unconscious. When I woke up, there was only Xiao Hua and Shue beside me. The 3 demons had already been executed. It was Xiao Hua who did it. How can I be wrong? After that, she didn't speak anymore. She pulled Shue's hand and walked towards the table. The Fire Qilin naturally didn't hesitate to follow. Only Xiao Hua stood there. When Furong told me about this matter, I was also shocked. First, I had only heard of the Heavenly Demon Sect's name and didn't know the details. Therefore, I just wanted to ask my fellow Taoists about their knowledge. Second, Heavenly Demon Sect actually dared to make a move on my Ardent Fire Mountain's direct disciple. It can be said that their ambition is truly hateful. Third, I didn't believe what Bai Yu said just now. An early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator can kill 3 cultivators of the same level. Hua Paishue smiled. However, after I carefully thought about it and made some inquiries, I found out that the Heavenly Demon Sect is made up of devil cultivators. In addition, their Foundation Establishment cultivators can't compare to our Foundation Establishment cultivators. Moreover, Xiao Hua is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Their lightning cultivation method is the nemesis of devil cultivators. Since Senior Hua said so, this junior can't say anything. Bai Yu smiled. This junior is only reminding you as an outsider. Don't fall into the trap of others. Even if it's a famous sect, there are still some direct disciples who can't do such dirty things. Seeing Bai Yu sit down, Hua Paishue laughed. Many thanks for Blue Li Sect's fellow Daoists' concern. My ardent fire mountain naturally knows the severity of this matter. In fact, Furong has already said that it was because she was careless. It seems that she knew that loose cultivator in the past. Therefore, she fell into the trap. If it was a normal time, those 3 cultivators might not be able to catch her. Then, he said to Xiao Hua, tell me what happened that day. After all, Furong was unconscious at that time and didn't see it. Yes. This junior doesn't dare to disobey. Xiao Hua knew that when he came here, he would definitely be asked about the process. He had already thought about it. Anyway, there were no secrets, only the Samadhi true fire. As a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, knowing the Samadhi true fire, it wasn't too strained. Thus, Xiao Hua recounted everything that had happened. You know the Samadhi true fire? Huozhe Shan's face revealed a happy expression. Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and nodded. Good, Senior Hua knows. If it wasn't for the Samadhi true fire, this junior would have fallen into the hands of the heavenly demon sect. Xiao Hua felt that it was inappropriate. He regretted not changing the Samadhi true fire to the thunder palm. But really, how could the thunder palm defeat cultivators of the same level? Show it to me. Huozhe Shan laughed. This? Xiao Hua said embarrassedly. Ardent Fire Mountain is a sect that controls fire. This junior shouldn't reveal this little bit of pettiness, right? -8. Chapter 2042. Good boy, you're quite generous. Xian Yunzi of the Blue Li sect mocked, I'm not proficient in Samadhi true fire, and you say it's petty. Junior doesn't dare. Junior. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. No matter, show it to me. Hua Paokong smiled, everyone here is your senior, what's there to be afraid of? Yes. When Xiao Hua heard this, he could only brace himself and open his hand. An inch-long Samadhi true fire appeared in his palm. Seeing that the Samadhi true fire only had a strand of red within the pure purple, the cultivators present all sucked in a breath of cold air. Although Xiao Hua's Samadhi true fire was small, it was pure. Xiao Hua was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. If he was at the nascent soul stage, how big would the Samadhi true fire be? All the nascent soul cultivators were well aware of this. Damn it, I finally understand why you were able to easily kill the 3 demons from the heavenly demon sect. Hua Paokong smiled, your Samadhi true fire is their nemesis. Yes. Xiao Hua put away the Samadhi true fire and said with an apologetic smile, Junior was also forced to activate this Samadhi true fire after various spells were ineffective. If this thing is still unable to do anything, Junior can only take Junior sister and flee. This thing hit the demons, no wonder it didn't leave behind any remains. Huozhe Shan grinned and said, Xiao Hua, take out the demons things and let the seniors have a look. Let's see if there are any clues about the heavenly demon sect. Yes. Xiao Hua had already prepared this item and unhesitatingly took out a storage pouch from his waist. Huozhe Shan waved his hand and Xiao Hua's storage pouch was sucked into his hand. He scanned it with his divine sense and frowned, then passed it to Master Xue Mo. After everyone had finished looking, the last foundation establishment cultivator on the right handed the storage pouch back to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua glanced at this somewhat familiar-looking cultivator, but before he could think, he heard Xian Yunzi say, this matter is somewhat troublesome. The methods of the heavenly demon sect are quite strange. I've only heard of similar methods among the demonic cultivators. Many of the methods of the demonic cultivators are not things that we cultivators can practice. Could it be that the sect leader of the heavenly demon sect found a method to practice the demonic techniques? Yes, that should be the case. Master Xue Mo also said, I've previously heard about the heavenly demon sect's disciples, but in the cultivation's 3 kingdoms, every year, there are small sects and small sects, at the same time, some small sects and small sects, small sects and small sects. Who would have thought that the heavenly demon sect, they sect. The key point is that since they dared to make a move on my blazing fire mountain, they will definitely make a move on the Blue Li sect and Huangdao sect. In the future, they will definitely make a move on the Imperial Thunder sect and Huanhua sect. This kind of sect is terrifying. Yes, We need to think about this at length. Hua Shan nodded, then turned to Xiao Hua and said, Xiao Hua, take your place. Originally, this old man wanted to give you some rewards in front of these two Dao friends. Consider it my ardent fire mountain's gratitude, but since you know the Samadhi true fire, this old man will have to consider it carefully. Yes, Junior understands. Xiao Hua didn't dare to say any more humble words. He bowed and walked to the lowest table on the left. Although Fire Chelin didn't sit next to Xue Xue, Hua Hibiscus couldn't block Fire Chelin's gaze. Fellow Daoist Xiao, Hua Hibiscus smiled apologetically. I've told grandfather everything I know and what Sister Xue told me. Grandfather naturally believes in fellow Daoist, but I didn't expect the disciples of the Blue Li sect to. Xiao Hua saw that the hot-tempered Hua Hibiscus was so obedient and smiled. Don't worry, what they said makes sense. If I didn't have the true Samadhi fire, I wouldn't dare to say that I could save fellow Daoist Hua from the heavenly demon sect. Hua Hibiscus grinned. Although she looked ugly, her eyes were sincere. She raised her cup. This is my fiery mountain's fiery wine. It's the most effective for fire-type physiques. Fellow Daoist Xiao should drink a few more cups. Spiritual wine again. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. However, he thought that everyone present were nascent soul and golden core cultivators. He was just a small character. No one would plot against him. The moment the fiery wine entered his mouth, he instantly felt a burning hot current rush into his body. Xiao Hua choked and almost shed tears. Immediately, the hot current turned into spiritual energy and rushed into his meridians. Like a fire snake, it followed the Heart Sutra and went through a cycle. Only when Xiao Hua's entire body was boiling hot did the spiritual energy dissipate in his meridians. What a tyrannical spiritual wine! Xiao Hua sighed and said. Hehe, this spiritual wine has a benefit. Hua Hibiscus said with a smile. However, just as she said that, her face turned red and she stopped. Xiao Hua didn't see it and asked curiously, there's a special benefit? I'm all ears. This. Hua Hibiscus murmured, I heard grandfather say that, it seems to be related to dual cultivation. Although Hua Hibiscus was ugly, her skin was extremely white. At this moment, her earlobes and neck were slightly red. Sweat tilde Xiao Hua was also embarrassed. He was about to hide something when he heard someone transmit sound in his ear. Xiao Hua, this old man has already introduced the nascent soul cultivators. As for the golden core cultivators present, let Hibiscus bring you to toast them. In the future, when you walk around Dawn Rain Continent, it will be convenient. Xiao Hua looked up and saw Hua Shan's ugly face looking at him with a smile. Xiao Hua didn't dare to transmit sound in fear of being discovered by the other nascent soul cultivators. At this moment, Hua Hibiscus also received Hua Shan's order. She waved her hand and asked the ardent Fire Mountain disciple behind her to bring a wine pot and a jade cup. She whispered to Xiao Hua, fellow Daoist Xiao, the cultivators present all have some face in Shi or Meng country. This servant's master is in ardent Fire Mountain and didn't come with grandfather. This servant can only toast them. Fellow Daoist Xiao is a disciple of Imperial Thunder sect and also this servant's savior. This can be considered as getting to know them. In the future, it should be helpful to fellow Daoist Xiao. Good. Xiao Hua stood up with Hua Hibiscus. He knew that this was an opportunity given to him by Hua Shan. Whether he was willing or not, he had to get up and toast. The two nascent soul cultivators wouldn't accept Xiao Hua's toast. Therefore, Hua Hibiscus led Xiao Hua to toast from the left side. There were 5 tables on the left side. They were the 2 middle gold core stage cultivators of Blue Li sect, Bai Yu and Ku Qingqiang, the middle gold core stage cultivator of Blazing Flame sect, Meng Shi, and early gold core stage cultivator of Blazing Flame sect, Liu Lanlan. At the bottom, next to Xiao Hua, was the middle foundation establishment stage cultivator of Lian country, Wang Ming. The other cultivators were easy to talk to. For the sake of ardent Fire Mountain's face, they all smiled and greeted Xiao Hua. After drinking the spirit wine, only Bai Yu coldly looked at Xiao Hua and asked, Xiao Hua, this old man feels that you have some problems. Let's not talk about your Samadhi true fire. How can this Samadhi true fire burn 3 foundation establishment cultivators at the same time? As long as you burn one of them, the other 2 will attack you at the same time. Can you escape? Moreover, after you saved Hibiscus, you suddenly disappeared and only sent your junior sister to Haoming City. Where have you been for nearly a year? How can this old man not suspect that you have colluded with the heavenly demon sect? Similarly, without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Hibiscus was also displeased and coldly said, Senior Bai Yu, this is something that my ardent fire mountain should consider, right? Since Xiao Hua is hiding something, he is also a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. It is impossible for him to collude with the demons of the heavenly demon sect. Even my great-grandfather believes it. There is no need for Senior to worry too much. Bai Yu smiled and looked at Hibiscus and then at Xiao Hua. He didn't say anything and didn't drink that cup of wine. Xiao Hua originally didn't want to be meddlesome, but this Baiyue's repeated suspicions also made Xiao Hua somewhat angry. He cupped his hands and said, Senior Baiyue's suspicions are indeed reasonable. Of course, I can't tell Senior where I went this year, but I can explain to Senior how I was able to escape the attacks of 2 foundation building cultivators. Oh, if you can convince this old man will drink this cup of wine, Bai Yu said with a smile. Senior only knows that Junior is a foundation establishment cultivator, but don't forget Junior's origin. Xiao Hua faced Bai Yu. Junior is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Junior naturally has the strengths of the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples. Ah, you actually know the lightning evasion technique? Bai Yu was somewhat surprised. This old man has a friend who is also a foundation establishment disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. He is already in the late stage of foundation establishment, but he has yet to learn the lightning evasion technique. He is a direct disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. From your surname, you shouldn't be a direct disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, right? How is it possible for you? Senior Bai Yu, what is impossible in this world? Xiao Hua looked at Bai Yu with a smile. Forget it. Bai Yu raised his cup and said with a bitter smile, This old man is asking for trouble today. This old man will drink this cup of wine. The last cultivator on the right had been paying attention to Xiao Hua. When he heard the conversation between Xiao Hua and Bai Yu, his face unconsciously revealed a thoughtful expression. After toasting the 5 cultivators on the left, it was the 5 cultivators on the right. These cultivators were Huangdao sect's middle-stage golden core stage cultivator Xing Ting and early-stage golden core stage cultivator Xu Yun. Meng Country's immortal music sect's middle-stage golden core stage cultivator Li Chongxiu and middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator Zhe Ming. The last cultivator, Xiao Hua, who looked somewhat familiar, was Xuanyan School's middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator Liang Yu. However, although Xiao Hua was paying attention to Liang Yu, he didn't have the slightest impression of this unfamiliar name. Liang Yu also followed the rules, as if he didn't know Xiao Hua at all. Thus, Xiao Hua casually said a few words to these 5 cultivators and returned to his seat. It could be said that he had completely thrown Liang Yu's matter aside. After a moment, Huozhe Shan, Daoist Shui Mo, and the others roared with laughter as if they were talking about something extremely interesting. Huozhe Kong called the dancers over. After watching the dance that made Xiao Hua feel somewhat embarrassed, everyone dispersed. Huozhe Shan left Xiao Hua and Xue Xue alone while he and his 2 brothers sent Daoist Shui Mo and Xian Yunzi out of the cave. -8. Chapter 2043. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please. Hua Furong ordered the disciples of Ardent Fire Mountain to clean up the other tables before inviting Xiao Hua and Xue Xue to sit on the left. However, before Xiao Hua and Xue Xue could sit, Huozhe Shan and the other 2 had already returned. Huozhe Shan smiled and said, Xiao Hua, Ian, and Xue Xue, come with this old man. Yes. Xiao Hua and Xue Xue had already stood up. Hearing this, they looked at each other in surprise and followed Huozhe Shan into the hall. Furong, you come too. Fire Chelin did not need Huozhe Shan's order and had already followed behind Xue Xue. Hua Furong was hesitant because Huozhe Shan clearly had something to tell her. However, Hearing Hua Shan's call, Hua Furong quickly followed. After the hall, there were several different corridors. Hua Shan did not hesitate to choose the middle corridor and walked in. Fire Qilin only had Shue in his eyes and did not care, but Hua Furong frowned. When Hua Shan stopped in front of the last room, Hua Furong was even more confused. This room was where the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain usually cultivated. Outsiders were not allowed to enter. Even Fire Qilin and Hua Furong could not enter without being summoned. Hua Shan looked at the 4 people kindly and waved his sleeve, opening the room's restriction and entering first. Then, the other 2 elders looked at each other with a mysterious smile and followed him in. Xiao Hua entered the room and realized that it was extremely large. It was probably half the size of the reception hall. In the room, there were 3 praying mats placed in a triangular formation. Below them were some simple decorations such as jades and bottles. Qilin, Furong, you 2 accompany Xiao Hua and Shue. Hua Shan waved his sleeve and walked to the center praying mat. He smiled and said, "This old man has some matters to discuss." Yes. Although Fire Qilin should be the one to respond, Hua Furong could only answer on his behalf. "Fellow Daoist Xiao, please sit." Hua Furong reached out and took out a few praying mats from her storage pouch. She casually placed them in the quiet room and invited Xiao Hua to take a seat. Although Hua Shan wanted Xiao Hua and the others to sit as they pleased, how could Xiao Hua dare? He smiled and said, "This Xiao is prepared to stand. If I sit down, I'm afraid it would be disrespectful to the seniors." Seeing this, Shue naturally nodded and said softly, "Let's stand here and talk." "Okay I'll listen to fellow Daoist Shue." The Fire Qilin, who had been silent all this time, waved his hand and put the several praying mats back into his storage bag. "Fire Qilin." Hua Furong was a bit angry. She said in a low voice, "Fellow Daoist Xiao and little sister Shue are guests. Grandfather ordered them to sit. They are just being polite, so how can you take it seriously?" "Oh, okay." The Fire Qilin was like a puppet that had lost its soul. With a flick of its hand, the 4 praying mats fell to the ground. Shue looked at Xiao Hua awkwardly. Xiao Hua also looked at the Fire Qilin, but it turned a deaf ear to Xiao Hua's gaze. Sigh. Thinking about how the Fire Qilin protected Shue, Xiao Hua did not know how to treat it. Cough cough tilde. Above the cultivation room, the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain had smiles in their eyes. They communicated in a low voice for a moment before nodding. Hua Shan coughed and said, "Xiao Hua, you all should sit down. This old man has something to say to you." This junior obeys. Xiao Hua bowed and sat down. "Just now at the banquet, the disciples of Lan Li sect doubted you. Please don't take it to heart." Hua Shan thought for a moment and said, "This old man knows that you are a disciple of Imperial Thunder sect. You would not collude with any demon from Sky Demon sect. However, the Lan Li sect has always wanted to be at the forefront of the cultivation sects in the country of Xi. They are quite hostile towards the Huanhua sect and the Imperial Thunder sect. This old man understands his intentions. When he asked you to reveal some spells, it was also to let you become famous. Yes, this junior understands." This was the first time Xiao Hua knew that Lan Li sect was hostile towards Huanhua sect and Imperial Thunder sect. However, he was very happy that Hua Shan was explaining this to him. The regret from before was swept away. "You saved my family's Furong. The 3 of us are very happy." After hearing the benefits that Furong promised you, the 3 of us also agreed. "Let's not talk about bringing you to participate in the auction. Just now, this old man has already prepared some benefits for you. We don't dare. As long as senior can bring this junior to participate in the auction, this junior will be very grateful." Xiao Hua quickly smiled. "Hehe, that's easy. When the time comes and you see something that you are satisfied with, just tell this old man. This old man will help you bid." Hua Shan said casually, "However, in the auction that we will participate in, any item will cost a lot of spirit stones. This old man and the others have already arranged the auction for my Hua Shan. If you want to bid for something, you will have to pay the spirit stones yourself. Of course. This junior left for a year to prepare. Xiao Hua smiled. I don't dare to trouble the seniors. At this time, Hua Furong said, Great-grandfather, just now when the boy accompanied fellow Xiao here, he received a message from a cultivator. The boy knows that great-grandfather hates this kind of message, so he crushed it. I didn't expect it to be a message from Immortal Music Sect's Daoist Blue Feather. As she spoke, Hua Furong took out the message talisman that the boy crushed. I know Tilda Hua Zhishan didn't even look at it. He flicked his sleeve and said, this guy came for the item that my Hua Zhishan is bidding for. Today, Immortal Music Sect's Li Chengxiu came to visit this old man. He didn't even bring his name card. He is obviously using his Mongolian sect's arrogance. Yes, the boy understands. Hua Furong was overjoyed and put the broken message talisman into her storage bag. Seeing Hua Furong take the blame for the boy, Xiao Hua had a new understanding of this temperamental female cultivator. In fact, appearance didn't mean everything. For example, the beautiful Chen Yi. Xiao Hua, actually what this old man wants to say is far from this. Hua Zhishan looked at Hua Furong. He obviously knew what this junior boy had done. He turned to Xiao Hua and said, this old man saw your true samadhi fire and, just now, all my previous thoughts were overturned. I want to give you more. Xiao Hua was stunned. He felt that something was wrong. How could there be free spirit wine in this world? He quickly waved his hand and said, this junior really only wants to ask for a small favor from senior. What are you in such a hurry for? Boss hasn't finished yet. Hua Pekong said angrily. We have been discussing for half a day and you don't appreciate it. Third brother. Hua Zhishan smiled. Don't scare the child. This temper of yours, Furong has learned it from you. -8. Chapter 2044. Hehe, boss, Furong is my direct descendant, how can she not follow me? Hua Pekong laughed. Chiline is also my direct descendant, how can she not follow me? Hua Shishui looked at the infatuated fire Chiline and said angrily. Hua Shishui Shan ignored the two and clenched his hand. Xiao Hua felt the world's energy in the room suddenly gather in Hua Shishui Shan's hand. Hua Shishui Shan waved his hand and a red light flashed in the air. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in the air and started to absorb the world's energy. In the blink of an eye, it became big. Xiao Hua was somewhat dumbstruck. The trembling light was actually a fiery red firebird. That firebird was extremely lifelike. Aside from the fact that there wasn't much spiritual light in its eyes, even the fine feathers on its forehead could be seen. It was exactly the same as a real firebird. On the left side of the firebird, an extreme heat radiated in all directions. Xiao Hua was not too close, but he could already feel the heat. Whoosh! That firebird actually spread its wings and pounced towards Xiao Hua. Ouch! Xiao Hua was startled. When the firebird flew, it actually gave off an intimidating aura that could cover Xiao Hua and restrict his flight. Moreover, this momentum was so terrifying. Although it was much worse than the vermilion bird transformed by the vermilion bird Great Array in Tianmen Mountain, it was not something that Xiao Hua could easily dodge. The bird flew in front of Xiao Hua. Half an inch closer and Xiao Hua would turn into ashes, but the bird spread its wings again and flew in front of Hua Shishui Shan. Seeing the bird in his hand, Hua Shishui Shan looked at Xiao Hua with pride and said, Xiao Hua, what do you think of this old man's fire controlling technique? It's really amazing. Xiao Hua said willingly, this is the first time this junior has seen such a technique. This junior is full of admiration. This is nothing. Hua Shishui Shan smiled. My ardent fire mountain is a fire sect. We have many fire controlling techniques. I just don't know, your Imperial Thunder sect also has fire attribute disciples. Have you learned this kind of fire controlling technique? This. Hearing Hua Zhishan's question, Xiao Hua hesitated. After all, he represented the Imperial Lightning sect and couldn't embarrass them. But in reality, he hadn't learned any fire control techniques from the Imperial Thunder sect. That brat Yoda. Boss is asking you, how can you be so rude? Hua Pekong shouted, you're just a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect with a different surname. How could you have learned such a miraculous fire controlling technique? Xiao Hua nodded. Senior Hua is right. Junior has indeed never had the opportunity to learn such a fire controlling technique. However, Junior believes that my Imperial Thunder sect surely has such a miraculous fire controlling technique as well. There is, but can you practice it? Huozhi Shan looked at Xiao Hua with interest. Junior doesn't know. Xiao Hua could only tell the truth. Do you want to learn my fire control technique? Huozhi Shan asked. Xiao Hua was taken aback. He shook his head and said, Junior doesn't want to. Why not? Hua Pekong was anxious. Xiao Hua glanced at Hua Pekong, not knowing why he was so anxious. He could only reply, this is a secret technique of Ardent Fire Mountain. Junior is a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. How could I learn Ardent Fire Mountain's secret technique? Even if Junior wants to, I'm afraid I can't. Why not? As long as you want to, Hua Pekong said. Senior, what do you mean? Xiao Hua was startled. What do you think of Furong? Huozhi Shan suddenly asked. Not bad. Xiao Hua blurted out. But then his expression changed. He knew that something was wrong. He looked at Xue Xue. Xue Xue also understood, her eyes flashing with surprise. Huozhi Shan laughed. You have good eyesight, great-grandfather, what do you mean? Hua Furong's face turned red as she hurriedly asked. You silly child. Huozhi Shan laughed. This year, you've mentioned Xiao Hua many times in front of this old man. If this old man still doesn't know your intentions, then this old man will really be a fool. That's not it, great-grandfather. Hua Furong's neck was completely red as she anxiously said, fellow Daoist Xiao is this child's benefactor. This child only mentioned this in front of you so that great-grandfather can reward him greatly. Boy knows that fellow Daoist Xiao and Sister Xue are a match made in heaven. Sister Xue's yearning for fellow Daoist Xiao in this year, boy has seen it all. How can a boy steal someone's love? This absolutely cannot. HMPH, why not? Hua Pekong angrily said. You're a direct disciple of Ardent Fire Mountain. Your future will be bright. Xiao Hua is just a neglected disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. What future does he have? If he dual cultivates with you, this old man will teach him all the secret techniques of Ardent Fire Mountain. When he reaches Golden Core or Nascent Soul, this old man will give him the position of an elder of Ardent Fire Mountain. Wouldn't that be more glorious than being in the Imperial Thunder sect? Great-grandfather, dual cultivators cannot be forced. Hua Furong naturally knew that Huozhi Shan and the others cared for her, but she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She hurriedly defended herself. But before she could finish, Hua Pekong berated her. Furong, although you've been like your great-grandfather since you were young and have a bad temper, unlike a little girl, you've always been kind to others. Great-grandfather and the others can clearly see that. Let's not talk about other things. Just take that demon from the Heavenly Demon sect for example. Wasn't it because of your kindness that he caused so much trouble? Also, the mistake of the boy at the door, you didn't even ask about it and just took responsibility for it. You have to know that there are some things you can be kind to others, but there are some things you can't. This old man also knows that you're a female cultivator and have always been inferior to others because of your appearance. Many times, you've avoided others and even used your bad temper as an excuse. Hua Pekong continued, however, your happiness is something you have to fight for yourself. You can't rely on others' charity. Xiao Hua's appearance is grand, and he also has a fire attribute constitution. He's proficient in Samadhi true fire. This kind of cultivator is very hard to find in the Dawn Rain continent. If he were to dual cultivate with you, it would definitely be extremely beneficial to your cultivation. Moreover, Xiao Hua's cultivation would also definitely advance greatly because of your assistance. Why don't you take the initiative to seize this kind of beneficial matter? This old man knows that you're thin-skinned, so today, I brought you and Xiao Hua into the quiet room and made this matter clear in front of you. It's also Xiao Hua's good fortune to have you, the daughter of the first wife of Ardent Fire Mountain. Great-grandfather Tilda Hua Furong smiled bitterly. Everything you said is correct. This boy also doesn't object to what you said. A woman will dress up for the person she likes. With this kind of appearance, which cultivator would be willing to dual cultivate with a boy? Those who send themselves to my door, saying sweet words and loving words, which one of them doesn't have ulterior motives and want to rush to my ardent fire mountain's inheritance? Boy has long been sick of it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have followed great-grandfather to Bright Dawn City. It's all right, Furong. When you reach nascent soul, you'll definitely be able to reforge your body. At that time, you can do whatever you want to him. Huozhi Shan smiled. Don't be like this old man and the others, thinking too highly of yourself and not wanting to wallow in the mire with others. Hua Furong smiled bitterly again and bowed. Great-grandfather, boy is only in the early stage of foundation establishment. Nascent soul is something that will happen thousands of years later. In any case, boy doesn't intend to reforge his body. Sigh, great-grandfather, to put it bluntly, boy doesn't even like Xiao Hua. Aren't you forcing the boy to go against his heart? Hihi, how is that possible? Hua Pekong smiled. This old man also came here when he was young. How can I not see it? Back then, when this old man was dual cultivating, hihi, it was exactly the same as you are now. A forcibly picked melon won't be sweet. Great-grandfather, this old man understands your feelings. Boy. Hua Furong was somewhat dejected as she spoke softly. What do you mean by a forcibly picked melon won't be sweet? Hua Pekong said. Feelings can be cultivated. Back then, this old man also forced himself on her. Third brother. Huozhi Shan scolded and then said to Hua Furong, it's different now. Furong, you have 3 great-grandfathers supporting you. There are cultivators all over the world, and you can choose one by one. This old man also likes Xiao Hua. Just his true samadhi fire is a gift from the heavens. Fellow Daoist Xiao is Sister Shue's lover. Hua Furong said word by word. Boy isn't ashamed to the point of fighting over a junior's partner. Haha Huozhi Shan laughed. Do you even need to consider this? This old man and the others are all optimistic. Didn't you see how distracted your cousin is? If Shue and Qilin dual cultivate, and you and Xiao Hua dual cultivate, wouldn't that be a natural couple? Ah! At this moment, whether it was Xiao Hua, Hua Furong, or even Shue, they were all stunned. Previously, when Hua Furong argued with the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain, Xiao Hua was a bit embarrassed. He looked at Shue and did not speak. Shue naturally knew that Xiao Hua and Hua Furong had only met once and did not have any dirty thoughts. But after hearing Huozhi Shan's arrangement, she was a bit afraid. Shue seems to be of the lightning attribute, similar to Qilin's fire attribute. After dual cultivating, their cultivation will be the same as yours, complementing each other. Why not? Huozhi Shan said proudly. Qilin. Boy is here. Hua Qilin ignored Huozhi Shan's call. Only after shouting twice did he look away from Shue's anxious expression. He asked curiously, why did great-grandpa call boy? Do you like Shue? Huozhi Shan asked decisively. I like her. Hua Qilin was even more straightforward. Are you willing to let Shue dual cultivate with you? Ah! Hua Qilin stared blankly, then became overjoyed. Of course, boy is very willing. Damn this. Xiao Hua was slightly angered. Shue's face was also ashen. Look, how good is this? Huozhi Shan laughed. The 2 of you are this old man's treasures. Once Xiao Hua and Shue come, all the problems will be solved. This old man is happy to death. Damn it. Xiao Hua cursed inwardly, isn't this randomly matching a couple? -8. Chapter 2045. Immediately after, Xiao Hua stepped forward and bowed. 3 seniors. This junior greatly admires Ardent Fire Mountain, but the problem is the same as what fellow Daoist Hua Furong said. This junior and fellow Daoist Hua Furong have only met a few times, and I don't have any thoughts in this regard. Senior has forced us to be together, and we are simply unable to dual cultivate. Besides, this junior has been in love with Shue for a long time, and this life can't be without Shue. Senior's good intentions, this junior can only accept it. That's right. Xue Xue stepped forward and grabbed Xiao Hua. Their fingers interlocked, and she said, "This junior will only dual cultivate with Xiao Hua in this life. Others would rather die than submit." Rather die than submit. Hua Pakhong laughed. "I said the same thing back then, but after I dual cultivated with her, third brother." Hearing Hua Pachong's words, Hua Zhishan hurriedly scolded, "Don't talk too much. Boss, it's nothing." Hua Pakhong said innocently, "I just wanted to say that she always makes me drink blaze brew." I know." Hua Zhishan was angry and amused at the same time. He turned to Xiao Hua and said, "How can a junior like you interfere with our decision? When my ardent fire mountain tells this good news to the Imperial Thunder Sect, even Qian Leizi of the Imperial Thunder Sect will be happy." "I'm sorry, senior." Xiao Hua rejected, "This is this junior's private matter, and it has nothing to do with the Imperial Thunder Sect. This junior will say the same thing as Xue Xue. I would rather die than submit." Then you can wait to die." Hua Pakhong was already impatient. He grabbed, and before Xiao Hua could react, he felt the heaven and earth spiritual qi around him being sucked dry. He had no way to borrow strength, and an irresistible restrictive force appeared in midair, firmly holding him in place. "You!" Xiao Hua was shocked. Just as he was about to spit out the spiritual fire and forcefully break through the shackles, the power of the shackles had already landed. The true essence around his body was completely frozen, just like in the ink Jiao Black Forest. "Bitter." Xiao Hua sighed. "Great-grandfather." Hua Furong hurriedly stood in front of Xiao Hua. "You have taken Xiao Hua's life. How can that boy still have the face to continue living in this world?" Hua Peikong put his hands inside his Taoist robe. "I was just scaring him. How could I bear to do anything to such a good son-in-law? As long as he and Xue Xue change their minds and agree to this matter, this old man will naturally release them." "Ah!" Xiao Hua quickly turned his head. Sure enough, Xue Xue was also standing there, unable to move at all. This nascent soul cultivator's technique was really not something that Xiao Hua and Xue Xue could deal with. "Qilin, Furong, I'll leave Xiao Hua and Xue Xue to you two." Hua Zhishan flicked his sleeve and said, "Persuade them well. Once they agree, this old man will send the news to your parents in Ardent Fire Mountain, and my Ardent Fire Mountain will head to the Imperial Thunder Sect to propose marriage." Great-grandfather Hua Hibiscus still wanted to explain, but Hua Mengshui waved his big sleeve. The four of them only felt their vision blur, and they all appeared outside the quiet room. "Ah, fellow Daoist Xiao, it's all this servant's fault." Hua Hibiscus smiled apologetically. "This servant only wanted to give fellow Daoist some rewards. I didn't expect such a change." "No matter." Xiao Hua did not have the strength to complain about her. He only gave her a look and said, "This Xiao does not have anything else to think about right now. I only ask." Without waiting for him to finish, the Fire Qilin said with a smile of exultation, "Fellow Daoist Xue, this way please." I did not expect this Fire Qilin's thoughts to be seen through by great-grandfather. This is truly a match made in heaven. I hope that fellow Daoist Xue will treat this Fire Qilin with respect in the future. Xue Xue glared and said angrily, "This concubine's heart is Xiao Hua's, and her body is also Xiao Hua's. This concubine will definitely not dual cultivate with you in this life. Just give up on this idea." Then she said to Xiao Hua, "Rest assured. This concubine will commit suicide by biting her tongue." "Ayo, fellow Daoist Xue." The Fire Qilin originally extended his hand to support Xue Xue, but at this moment, he was so frightened that he hurriedly retracted his hand. He said with an ashen face, "Could it be? I, a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator, cannot compare to you, an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator, Xiao Hua? I, who will be able to control the Ardent Fire Mountain in the future, cannot compare to you, Xiao Hua, who is destined to be unknown in the future. Could it be that you are also like those vulgar women who only care about a cultivator's appearance and no longer appreciate a cultivator's heart?" Xue Xue did not show any expression. She sneered and said, "This has nothing to do with appearance. This concubine only knows that there is Xiao Hua in this world. Other male cultivators are all dung. If I cannot dual cultivate with Xiao Hua, this concubine would rather die." Hearing this, the Fire Chalene's originally grief-stricken face flushed red. He said anxiously, "Fellow Daoist Shui means, you are not doing this because of Ai's appearance, but because there is Xiao Hua in this world." "That's right," Shui Shui answered without hesitation, "there is Xiao Hua in this world. No matter what other people, this concubine will not give half a glance. What if there is no Xiao Hua in this world?" The Fire Chalene's eyes narrowed. Shui Shui hesitated and said coldly, "Then there is also no concubine in this world. What nonsense are you talking about? Why aren't you taking one away each? Otherwise, this old man will kill you with one palm." Hua Pai Kong's angry roar sounded. "Yes." Great-grandfather Tilda Hua Furong smiled bitterly and said in a low voice, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, please follow this servant first. Otherwise, it will be troublesome." But how could Xiao Hua let Shui Shui leave him? He shook his head slightly. "Little sister Shui, please follow big sister first." Hua Hibiscus understood Xiao Hua's intentions. She pulled Shui Shui to her side and slowly walked along the corridor. Seeing this, Xiao Hua glanced at the Fire Chalene and also followed them. The Fire Chalene hung its head dejectedly for a moment and could only continue walking. Hua Furong did not dare to disobey the orders of Hua Zhishan and the others and did not arrange for Xiao Hua and Shui Shui to be in the same room. Fortunately, the two rooms were facing each other. Xiao Hua could see Shui Shui on the other side with a glance. Only then did Xiao Hua's heart calm down. Hua Furong sat beside Xiao Hua with a bitter face. In that room, the Fire Chalene was even more dejected, as if all of its energy had been sucked away. Even after several hours, Xiao Hua still didn't have any countermeasures. He was really anxious, as if his heart was on fire. Being imprisoned here did not matter, but inside the cave, he still had to refine the Ling Lei pill. This was related to Shui Shui's foundation. There was only one heavenly yin grass. If the refining failed, Shui Shui's foundation would become fleeting. However, could he agree to dual cultivate with Hua Furong? Could Shui Shui agree? Very quickly, a day and night passed. Xiao Hua sat cross-legged and stared at Shui Shui in the other room. Shui Shui was as calm as water and looked at Xiao Hua with a smile. "No matter what, I have to think of a way." Xiao Hua naturally knew Shui Shui's intention to die. -8. Chapter 2046. At this moment, he heard Hua Furong secretly transmit her voice. "Fellow Daoist Xiao, no one in the entire Ardent Fire Mountain dares to disobey the words of great-grandfather. Furthermore, he has never rashly acted against low-level cultivators. This time, he must have made his decision. This servant knows the feelings of you and little sister Shui, and this servant does not wish to separate the two of you. However, the situation is pressing. This servant thinks that it would be better if we first compromise and wait for the three great-grandfather to feel at ease. We will coax them until they are happy and release the four of us. At that time, you and little sister Shui can escape to a faraway place and quickly return to the Imperial Thunder Sect. Could it be that they still want to chase after the Thunderclap Peak?" Xiao Hua's heart was moved. This was not a bad idea. After all, dual cultivation was not something that could be done in a short period of time. There were still many things that needed to be prepared. If he and Shui Shui left, what could they do? However, just as Xiao Hua was about to nod, his heart was moved again. He thought of Hua Pikong's forced himself on her. He transmitted his voice to Hua Furong in a low voice. He saw that Hua Furong's face was also flushed red and she slightly lowered her head. Indeed, Xiao Hua's misgivings were absolutely reasonable. How could three nascent soul cultivators who had lived for several thousand years be fooled by two people? When the time came, it would be too late to steal the chicken and end up losing the rice used to lure it. Then what should we do? Hua Furong was somewhat at a loss. At this moment, Shui Shui, who was in the other quiet room, suddenly raised her head. Her face revealed a frightened expression. "Fellow Daoist Hua, quickly." Xiao Hua's heart was also grasped as he hurriedly called out to Hua Furong. Hua Furong saw this and felt that things were not good. Just as she was about to run into the other quiet room, she felt a force coming from the quiet room and pushing her back. Immediately, the quiet room was sealed. Fire Qilin. Xiao Hua's face was pale as he roared loudly. Cousin, Fire Qilin. Hua Furong was even more shocked. She crawled up from the ground and rushed into the quiet room. At this moment, Xiao Hua did not care about anything else as he angrily said, Fire Qilin, if anything happens to my Xue, I. As he spoke, Xiao Hua opened his mouth and forced the spiritual fire into his mouth. On the other hand, his arms, he wanted to use the strength of his corporeal body to break the seal. However, right at this moment, Hua Hibiscus's figure that was pouncing towards the restriction was knocked back, and she crashed into Xiao Hua's body. Xue's face was pale as she sat on the ground. There was blood on the Fire Qilin's lips, and its face was ferocious. It walked out of the room step by step, completely ignoring Xiao Hua and Hua Furong. It walked into the corridor. Little sister Xue. Hua Furong hurriedly ran over, and Xiao Hua naturally followed. I'm fine. Xue seemed to be a little frightened, but she still appeared calm. The blood on the Fire Qilin's mouth is from its own bite. Just now. Hua Furong glanced at Xiao Hua, who had an extremely abnormal expression. She wanted to say something but hesitated. He. Even if Hua Furong didn't ask, Xue still had to say it. Just now, when the Fire Qilin opened the restriction of the quiet room, it asked this concubine a question. What words? Hua Furong asked curiously. He would rather die than dual cultivate. Xue said calmly. This concubine said yes. Then, this concubine wanted to bite my tongue, but the Fire Qilin bit its own lips and stopped this concubine's action. Then, it opened the restriction and went out by itself. What is the Fire Qilin doing? Xiao Hua frowned. Why is it so mad? This concubine, we'll go and take a look. Hua Furong wanted to leave but hesitated, afraid that something might happen. In the end, Hua Furong opened the restriction of the quiet room and quickly left. However, not long after, Hua Furong turned back with a worried expression. What's wrong? Xue asked in a low voice. The Fire Qilin sealed all the meridians in his body and knelt in front of great-grandfather's quiet room. Hua Furong said in a low voice. He is kowtowing. Ah! Xiao Hua and Xue were immediately stunned. He wants to earnestly ask the three great-grandfathers to retract their orders. Hua Furong said sadly. We will go too. Xiao Hua quickly said. Don't. Hua Furong quickly stopped them. The Fire Qilin is great-grandfather's favorite. It is fine as long as he is here. If we all go, I am afraid that we will lose their face and make things worse. Sigh, this fellow Daoist Hua. Xiao Hua sighed in his heart and sat down. This was the first time he changed that guy to fellow Daoist Hua. Xue also sighed. After knowing what the Fire Qilin was doing, Hua Furong didn't dare to go over and watch for fear of angering the three great-grandfathers. Just like that, the three of them sat there for a day and a night. Just when Xiao Hua was thinking blindly, a boy quietly came in and called Hua Furong out. After another hour, Hua Furong came in with a spiritual talisman in her hand and a trace of worry on her face. How is it? Fellow Daoist Hua? Xiao Hua asked anxiously. Hua Furong activated the spiritual talisman and hit Xiao Hua and Xue's bodies. The restriction on their bodies was immediately removed. Go, great-grandfather has let you go. Hua Furong said calmly. Xue glanced at Xiao Hua and said in a low voice, Where is Senior Fire Qilin? Sigh, cousin kowtowed for a day and a night. His forehead is completely broken and he has already fainted. Hua Furong forced a smile and said, however, with little sister Xue's question, cousin will definitely be happy. Sigh. Xue shook her head slightly and pulled Xiao Hua's arm. Let's go. Xiao Hua also didn't want to say anything more. After leaving the cave, Hua Furong said apologetically, Fellow Daoist Xiao, I won't send you off. I still have to go back and see cousin. The auction is not far away. When the time comes, I will go and find fellow Daoist. No need. Xiao Hua quickly waved his hand. I and junior sister Xue are preparing to return to Imperial Thunder Sect. It is better not to participate in this auction. Great-grandfather said that we must repay the favor. Hua Furong said awkwardly. Fellow Daoist Xiao, you should go together. Xiao Hua was in a difficult position and looked at Xue Xue. Xue Xue sighed and said, since Senior doesn't mention this matter anymore, I'm afraid he won't mention it again in the future. If Xiao Hua wants to go, then go. After all, it's Senior's order. All right. Xiao Hua nodded. This Xiao and junior sister will be waiting for you inside the cave. Immediately, Xiao Hua pulled Xue Xue and flew down the mountain without looking back. Hua Furong looked at the two figures and sighed. Then, she turned around and quickly entered the cave. Xiao Hua and Xue Xue's hearts were filled with mixed feelings. They felt like they had just survived a disaster. They could only clench their fists tightly and didn't say anything. When they were about to reach the core formation cultivator's residence, Xiao Hua suddenly whispered, Xue Xue, don't you think this nascent soul cultivator is too overbearing? Naturally, Xue Xue said with lingering fear, if not for the fire Qilin, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to leave the cavern dwelling in Ardent Fire Mountain. It seems like we were wrong. Xiao Hua said with a frown, since Reverend Miu has come to Haoming City and wants to participate in the auction, how could we, as disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect, not pay him a visit? Otherwise, not only would we be unable to explain our etiquette, but would also be too embarrassed to look for him if something happened. Xue Xue nodded. Husband, you're right. Let's go now. Otherwise, we'll have no reason to meet him in the auction. According to the directions given by Yu Chen, Xiao Hua and Xue Xue found a cavern dwelling that was slightly larger than the one in Ardent Fire Mountain. They saw that it was similar to the one in Ardent Fire Mountain. There were more than 10 brocade-robed disciples guarding the entrance. They were all foundation building and aura refining disciples. Xiao Hua and Xue Xue didn't dare to be negligent. They took their tokens and went forward to pay their respects, clearly stating that they were disciples of the Shocking Thunder Palace. Unexpectedly, the disciple who took the tokens only glanced at them and took out a jade slip. It seemed like he was recording something inside. Then, he returned the tokens to Xiao Hua and said with an expressionless face, I understand. You can wait for your experimental learning. Reverend Miu has her own matters to attend to, so she won't see you. Yes. Disciple understands. Xiao Hua and Xue Xue took the tokens and looked at each other. Then, they turned around and flew away from Reverend Miu's cavern. They knew that there must be a lot of disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect who went out for experimental learning. There must be a lot of people who knew that Reverend Miu had come to Haoming City. In the Imperial Thunder Sect, it was indeed very difficult to meet Reverend Miu, but in Haoming City, it was easy. Everyone wanted to get close to a nascent soul cultivator. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua was only a foundation-building disciple and Xue Xue was an aura-refining disciple. Among the disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect who came out for experimental learning, their cultivation was the lowest. It would be strange if they could meet Reverend Miu. Of course, since Xiao Hua was experimental learning in Haoming City, he had to come and pay his respects. It was normal for a nascent soul cultivator to not see him, but if he didn't come to pay his respects, it would be rude. If Reverend Miu found out, it would be a big sin. This was something Xiao Hua understood after being taught a lesson by a nascent soul cultivator. After returning from Reverend Miu's Immortal's Cave, Xiao Hua saw that the restrictions on his Immortal's Cave were safe and sound. Only then did he let out a long sigh of relief. He swept his divine sense left and right. Seeing that there wasn't anything unsightly, he opened the restrictions and entered the Immortal's Cave. Sure enough, the formation around the Earthfire was still there. The Earthfire inside the formation was licking the pill furnace. Everything was safe and sound. Xue Xue tilde Xiao Hua glanced at Xue Xue, who was still somewhat restless, and said with a sigh, It's all because of my incompetence that you suffered such an unexpected calamity. Xue Xue calmed herself down, stepped forward, and sighed. She hugged Xiao Hua's waist, buried her head in his chest, and said, Husband, it's all this concubine's fault. You obviously didn't want this concubine to go, but this concubine insisted on going, and actually caused so much trouble. Alas, although I didn't want you to go, it's obviously a nascent soul senior. You can't not go and pay your respect. What can you do? Xiao Hua stroked Xue Xue's black hair and comforted her. Xue Xue made an en sound and murmured, "In the end, it's still because my cultivation is shallow. It's just like Uncle said, unless you cultivate to the nascent soul realm, otherwise, no one dares to be arrogant on Dawn Rain continent." That's right, strength is everything. Xiao Hua's eyes slightly narrowed, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed through his expression. Husband. Xue Xue's face was red and her body was slightly hot. She said in a low voice, "Today, I'll dual cultivate with husband. I'll give you my primordial yin body as soon as possible. Only then can I be at ease." -8. Chapter 2047. When Xiao Hua heard this, his heart swayed and he hugged Xue Xue tightly. But then he smiled and said, "Wife, don't think too much. After all, you have not built your foundation. If you dual cultivate now, it will definitely affect your cultivation. Even if your husband is selfish, it is impossible for me to take your primordial yin. Besides, the Ling Lei pill is about to be refined, why should you and I be anxious? Husband, this concubine is afraid." Xue Xue raised her neck and said, kissing Xiao Hua's lips. Her strength was extremely strong, as if only by doing so could she abandon the fear in her heart. Xiao Hua knew that Xue Xue was frightened and her state of mind was damaged. If he did not make up for it in time, it would definitely affect her cultivation. Thus, he hugged Xue Xue and said some lingering words in her ear, coaxing her to sleep. Then, Xiao Hua sat cross-legged and entered his space. "Yi! Little Huang, you are awake." In the space, little Huang stretched and lay on the ground with half-closed eyes. Mother," little Huang replied, "I should be awake, but I am still a little sleepy." Xiao Hua looked at little Huang. There did not seem to be any special changes, only his figure was slightly bigger. If he did not pay attention, he might not be able to see it. Good Xiao Hua replied and began to think about his own matters. Xiao Hua originally wanted to wait for the Sword Heart Yuan Seed technique to succeed in dream execution before splitting his primordial spirit according to the secret technique and cultivate different technique. But in front of the absolute strength of the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain, he could not remain calm. He did not want to waste any time and urgently needed to protect himself and protect Xue Xue's strength. However, when he activated the secret technique and was about to use it, he hesitated again. Last time, when he split his primordial spirit, the pain of his primordial spirit had just subsided. Moreover, the Ling Lei pill was being refined. At this time, even if he succeeded in splitting his primordial spirit, it would definitely hinder the refinement of the pill. After pondering for a long time, Xiao Hua understood. He smiled bitterly and thought to himself, "What is wrong with this young master? I am not calm at all. Now, this young master has a secret technique that others do not know, but it must be done step by step and not be disturbed by external thing. Senior Huang Yi has suffered so much, this young master still has not understood his own feelings. Stay calm, stay calm. Only by remaining unchanged can we be victorious in every battle." As he thought about this, Xiao Hua's mind left the space and silently operated the Buddhist sect's mental cultivation method. Only then did his mental state slowly calm down. Goldie was flabbergasted as he watched Xiao Hua come in and go out. Inexplicably, he stretched his body again, and his figure quietly grew a little bigger. In the blink of an eye, another 10 days passed. Xiao Hua and Xue Xue only cultivated behind closed doors and didn't even take half a step out of the cave. During this period of time, neither the fire hibiscus nor the fire chelene appeared in front of the cave. On the other side of Xiao Hua's Immortals Cave, which was also a foundation-building cultivator's Immortals Cave, Xuanyan School's Liang Yu was whispering to Yang Yu. He then said, "Senior Marshal Brother Yang, I'm afraid we can't carry out the plan we discussed." Although that Xiao Hua appeared in Haoming City, he saved Hua Furong of the Ardent Fire Mountain and is now favored by the three elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain. If we attack him, I'm afraid, we'll bring about endless harm. Mph, it's just the Ardent Fire Mountain. How can it be compared to my Xuanyan School? Yang Yu's expression was very gloomy. Obviously, he didn't like hearing this news that made him angry. Moreover, this matter, not only must we do it, we must do it quickly. Senior Marshal Brother Yang, do you want to die? Liang Yu advised in astonishment, if Xiao Hua were to die in our hands, wouldn't the three elders of the ardent fire mountain fly into a rage? With the fiery tempers of Hua Baikong and Hua Yashui, wouldn't they pinch us to death? They simply wouldn't care about our identities as disciples of the Xuanyan school. Moreover, do you think that the masters would be serious with the three elders of the ardent fire mountain, who are comparable to 6 nascent soul cultivators, for the sake of you and me? Yang Yu narrowed his eyes and stared at the darkness inside the immortal's cave for a long time. He then said in a low voice, although Xiao Hua saved Hua Furong, he wasn't a disciple of the ardent fire mountain after all. Why would the three elders of the ardent fire mountain protect him? We secretly killed him. Even the Imperial Thunder sect doesn't know who did it, so how would the three elders of the ardent fire mountain know? This Dawn Rain continent is so big. Even a spirit-severing cultivator might not be able to find the reason for the disappearance of a Foundation establishment cultivator, right? Little brother, from the looks of the three elders of the ardent fire mountain, it seems that they don't just want to treat Xiao Hua as Hua Furong's savior. Liang Yu frowned and explained, listening to their tone, it seems that they want to treat Xiao Hua as Hua Furong's dual cultivation partner. They actually introduced him to Xian Yunzi and Daoist Master Xue Mo. Moreover, Hua Furong even accompanied Xiao Hua to propose a toast to us. Ayo, really? Yang Yu was somewhat dazed. He said in a flustered and exasperated manner, if that's the case, then it's really troublesome. Could it be that this old man's grandson will die in vain? Therefore, Senior Marshal Brother Yang, you and I better not take the risk. Liang Yu advised, if your grandson is gone, then let the younger generation give birth to another one. Isn't everything settled? If I can give birth, then why would I waste so much effort to take revenge? When this was mentioned, Yang Yu was ashamed and angry again. My bloodline is in that little bastard's body. If he dies, where will my bloodline be passed on? Heh. Liang Yu knew Yang Yu's bitterness. He chuckled and no longer spoke. Sitting on a chair, Yang Yu drank mouthful after mouthful of spirit wine. However, he suddenly asked, that's not right, Junior Marshal Brother Liang. Didn't you say that Xiao Hua has an aura-refining junior marshal sister who is with him? Their attitude is very intimate. Moreover, this Yang has also seen that female cultivator who is as beautiful as a celestial being. She is 100 times better than the incomparably ugly Hua Furong. How could Xiao Hua abandon his partner and find someone else? Speaking of this, Liang Yu still has to tell you. Liang Yu wasn't blind. Of course, he saw the fire Chilean's infatuation with Xue. He whispered this matter to Yang Yu. Forget it. Yang Yu slapped the chair and said dejectedly, is there still a need to say it? How could Xiao Hua and Xue escape the clutches of the three elders of the ardent fire mountain? I'm afraid that this matter has already been decided. The two beauties of the Imperial Thunder sect will be occupied by two ugly people. Therefore, even if Xiao Hua isn't willing, in order to make him willing, the three elders of the ardent fire mountain will definitely start with Xue. Senior Marshal Brother Yang, you should let this matter go. Liang Yu said with a smile after seeing that he had persuaded Yang Yu. Even if I don't want to, I have to. Yang Yu said with a flick of his sleeve, I'm not stupid enough to go against a nascent soul cultivator. Saying this, Yang Yu got up from the chair and walked out. Where is Senior Marshal Brother Yang going? Liang Yu asked with a smile. I'm going out for a stroll. Yang Yu said, if I see any aura-refining brat I don't like, I'll kill him while I'm at it. I'll make other cultivators as depressed as I am. -8. Chapter 2048. Haha. Liang Yu laughed, knowing that Yang Yu was truly depressed. However, in less than an hour, Yang Yu returned with a look of exultation. What? How many chi refinement brats did you kill? Liang Yu put away a jade slip and asked with a smile. I got some news again. Yang Yu whispered a few words to Liang Yu. Liang Yu frowned and said with displeasure, Senior Marshal Brother Yang, this matter is clearly impossible, why force yourself? Junior Marshal Brother Liang, don't you want the storage pouches of those gold core cultivators? Don't you want Xiao Hua's Samadhi True Fire cultivation method? Yang Yu laughed. Maybe Xiao Hua's Samadhi True Fire was obtained from the storage pouches of those gold core cultivators. He's just an early foundation establishment brat, yet he can cultivate the Samadhi True Fire in just a few years. What if Junior Marshal Brother Liang obtains the Samadhi True Fire? Besides, in the storage pouches of those gold core cultivators, there's probably something even better than the Samadhi True Fire, right? Thinking about how Xiao Hua's early foundation establishment cultivation was actually able to deal with 3 heavenly demon sect disciples of the same cultivation level, Yang Yu naturally knew that Xiao Hua obtained a lot from the storage pouches of those gold core cultivators. How could he not covet it? Seeing that Liang Yu was tempted, Yang Yu said again, according to my plan, we don't have to act against Xiao Hua right now. Let's first see the attitude of the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain and Xiao Hua's movements. After all, that's a gold core cultivator's storage pouch. I'm also somewhat tempted. If it weren't for the fact that I don't have absolute confidence right now, I'd definitely act myself. Why would I need to inform Junior Marshal Brother? Yang Yu pondered for a long time, then gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, Xiao Hua's Samadhi True Fire is very powerful, and from what I heard, his flying technique is also very successful. I'm afraid the 2 of us won't be able to easily deal with him. We might even have to call Senior Marshal Brothers Jie Ming and Chen Han over. That's the only way. Yang Yu nodded and said, we also swore that if there's news of Xiao Hua, we'll immediately send a message. Moreover, on the way back, I also thought a lot. Now that Xiao Hua has the backing of Ardent Fire Mountain, besides the Imperial Thunder Sect, he has to do it cleanly. We can't leave any hidden dangers. For this, I have to prepare something. Liang Yu was taken aback. His eyeballs spun a few times as he asked curiously, what other tricks does Senior Marshal Brother Yang have up his sleeve? This Yang will prepare for this matter alone. When I need Junior Brother Liang, I will naturally inform you. Yang Yu said with a smile, this is the only time. We absolutely cannot let Xiao Hua escape. Junior Marshal Brother Liang, please send the message talisman. I'll take a look at the shops in Haoming City. All right. Liang Yu wasn't sure what Yang Yu wanted to do, so he could only nod and send out the transmission talisman. Inside Xiao Hua's cave, the pill liquid of the Ling Lei pill had been refined. Under Xiao Hua's alchemy technique, it had gradually fused. The 2 kinds of pill liquid, yin and yang, were fused smoothly under the condensation of the sky yin grass juice. Xiao Hua sat upright in front of the cauldron, concentrating. Xue was also not in the alchemy room at this time. She was only sitting in the quiet room, meditating with her eyes closed, carefully comprehending the technique that Xiao Hua gave her. This technique was very strange. It was completely different from what Xue practiced together, so it was quite strenuous. After a few more days, Xiao Hua came out from the alchemy room, somewhat exhausted. Xue immediately opened her eyes and asked considerately, husband, did the refining go smoothly? Who is your husband? He is a genius. Xiao Hua boasted, it's all a piece of cake, no big problems. Xue covered her mouth and laughed. The previous faint worry had already disappeared. Looking at Xiao Hua's exhausted appearance, she said, husband is tired. Why don't you let me accompany you for a walk? Before my husband came, Senior Furong accompanied me to walk around Haoming City a few times. There were many good things in many shops. It seems that there are also a few shops that sell talismans. According to Senior Furong, they are very powerful. Hearing that there were good things, Xiao Hua's heart moved again. However, he immediately rejected this matter and said with a smile, it's better to avoid trouble. The plan now is to cultivate quickly. Okay. Xue understood Xiao Hua's heart and nodded. Then, she picked out a few difficult parts of the dragon transformation art and asked Xiao Hua. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days passed. On this day, Xiao Hua was cultivating when he felt that there were some changes in the cave's restriction. When he swept out with his divine sense, a complicated expression appeared on his face. Seeing this, how could Xue not know what was going on? She smiled apologetically and said, "Did the people from the ardent fire mountain come? This concubine will cultivate in the cave. This concubine will not participate in the auction. That's for the best." Xiao Hua nodded. However, when Xiao Hua was about to get up, Shui smiled and said, "Husband, did Fire Qilin come?" He came with Fire Furong." Xiao Hua didn't hide it. "Then I will go out," Shui said with some hesitation. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Everything is up to my wife." When Xiao Hua opened the cave's restriction, the first thing he saw was Fire Qilin directly ignoring him and looking behind him. When he saw that there was no one behind Xiao Hua, he actually asked, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, where is fellow Daoist Shui? Why didn't she come out?" Xiao Hua was speechless. Just when he was about to answer, Shui's voice was heard. "Senior Fire, may I know why Senior is looking for Junior?" Hearing Shui's voice, Fire Qilin's spirit was raised even more than when he took a nascent pregnancy pill. His eyes immediately lit up, and he cupped his hands and said, It's nothing. I just came to invite fellow Daoist Shui to participate in the auction." "Oh, the auction is a matter for nascent soul seniors. Junior is just an aura-refining disciple, so I won't disturb you," Shui said with a smile. "It's just that my husband is a little curious, so he can go." "Husband? Who's your husband?" Fire Qilin actually asked such a stupid question. It really didn't match a middle-stage foundation-building cultivator. Fellow Daoist Fire, my wife's husband is naturally Xiao Hua," Xiao Hua said with a smile, "He's right in front of you." "Oh." Fire Qilin was extremely disappointed, but he still didn't look at Xiao Hua. He looked at Shui anxiously and asked, You really don't want to go?" "I won't go." Shui shook her head, but she immediately smiled again. Junior is at a critical juncture in her cultivation. However, Junior heard that Senior Fire was coming, so Junior came out to see you. "I want to." Without waiting for Shui to finish, Fire Qilin said in surprise, "Fellow Daoist Shui, you came out especially for me?" That's right." Shui nodded. Junior came to thank Senior Fire for begging in front of the 3 elders that day, and also to thank Senior for helping Junior and my husband. After saying that, Shui bowed. No need. Fire Qilin hurriedly reached out to help Shui, but Xiao Hua blocked his way. "All right, Senior Fire, Junior has already thanked Senior. Junior wants to go back and cultivate." Shui said with a smile, "Junior hopes that Senior Fire can find a suitable dual cultivation partner like Junior." After saying that, Shui turned around and entered her Immortal's cave, not looking back again. Fire Qilin immediately looked as if he had lost his soul. Looking at Shui's disappearing figure, he opened his mouth but didn't say a word. "Fellow Daoist Xiao." At the side, Hua Furong didn't say anything. After waiting for Fire Qilin to finish speaking, she cupped her hands and said, "Today is the day of the auction. I specially came to invite fellow Daoist Xiao." "All right, I'll have to trouble fellow Daoist Hua." Xiao Hua smiled and returned the greeting. He took out a magic tablet and activated the Immortal's Cave's restriction. Seeing the Immortal's Cave's door disappear in front of his eyes, Fire Qilin seemed to feel that all hope had disappeared, and there was a disheartened look in his eyes. Seeing this, Xiao Hua also felt some sympathy in his heart. He cupped his hands and said, "Fellow Daoist Hua, these few days, my wife has been praising fellow Daoist's benevolence in front of me, and wanted to thank fellow Daoist for his great kindness. Now, she can finally fulfill her wish." "Ah, is that so? How did she praise I?" Fire Qilin's eyes gave birth to a trace of spirit. "Let's go, we'll talk as we walk," Xiao Hua said with a smile. He actually patted Fire Qilin's shoulder, and Fire Qilin actually let Xiao Hua come closer. Hua Furong shook her head as she watched from the side, but what could she say? Arriving in front of Ardent Fire Mountain's Immortal's Cave, a flame-shaped flying magic tool that seemed to be cast from golden stone stopped in front of the door. The dazzling golden color refracted the glaring sunlight, and in Xiao Hua's eyes, it was like a ball of resplendent flame. At the edge of the flying magic tool, There were already several gold core and foundation establishment cultivators standing there. There were also many children who were dressed in embroidered clothes and had solemn expressions. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please wait a moment. Arriving in front of the flying magic tool, Hua Furong said in a low voice, Great-grandfather hasn't come out yet. We can only go up after he comes out. Okay. Xiao Hua agreed and stood respectfully at the side. At this moment, although Fire Chelin wasn't as dispirited as before, he was still somewhat dispirited and listless. It seemed that the words Xiao Hua said on the road weren't enough to dispel his infatuation. Not long after, a melodious sound came from inside the Immortal's cave, and the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain slowly walked out, surrounded by a group of Ardent Fire Mountain disciples. When the three elders of Ardent Fire Mountain arrived in front of the flying magic tool and saw Xiao Hua, their expressions were somewhat different. Hua Paikong and Huarishire coldly swept their gazes over, and Xiao Hua could feel the piercing gaze from afar. Hua Ishire lightly asked, Shue didn't come? Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Fire Chelin opened his mouth again. Okay, great-grandfather knows that Shue is cultivating to break through to foundation establishment, so she can't come. Foundation establishment is just a matter of raising one's hand and hearing. If she knows, then this old man will let her reach foundation establishment today. Hua Ishire sneered. Hua Paikong unhappily said, I didn't ask you, stand aside. Yes, boy knows. Fire Chelin didn't refute and obediently stood to the side. Xiao Hua apologetically smiled and said, My junior sister's knowledge is shallow and doesn't dare to take up Ardent Fire Mountain's precious spot. She's also cultivating, so she can't go. Huarishire nodded, looked up, and said a few words. On the flying magic tool, a golden core disciple bowed and said, Disciple understands. -8. Chapter 2049. Let's go. Hua Zhishan said as he floated onto the flying magic artifact and sat on a jade chair. Xiao Hua and the others also boarded the flying magic artifact. Then, without waiting for Xiao Hua to stabilize himself, the Foundation Establishment disciples activated the magic artifact. A huge suction force appeared from the bottom of the flying magic artifact, blooming like a lotus flower. A series of rumbling sounds were heard as the entire flying magic artifact flew up. Contrary to Xiao Hua's expectations, the flying magic artifact didn't fly down the mountain, but straight up. Above the residence of a nascent soul cultivator should be the residence of a spirit-severing cultivator. Could it be? Xiao Hua was surprised, but the flying magic artifact flew up several dozen feet and the mountain became steeper. Although the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was rich, the layout was far from that of a nascent soul cultivator's residence. It couldn't even compare to a foundation establishment cultivator's residence. Oh! Xiao Hua immediately understood. Although Haoming City was one of the 7 major cities in the country of Xi, it could only accommodate nascent soul cultivators. How could a spirit-severing cultivator come to Haoming City? Even if a spirit-severing cultivator came, Reverend Yang Hong would have to go out and welcome them. How could a spirit-severing cultivator stay here? The city lord's residence was more like it. After flying for a while, they arrived at a huge platform that occupied the entire mountain peak. Hua Zhishan's magic artifact rose up, but it didn't land on the platform. Instead, it floated in midair, as if waiting for something. Dang! A loud sound rang out. It was as if there were countless bells. 4 colors of brilliance blossomed on the platform, illuminating the entire sky. The previously unclear sky was now clear and bright. At this moment, Xiao Hua noticed to his astonishment that there were actually around 20 flying magic tools parked around the enormous platform, and every single one of them was unique and extremely strange. When all sorts of magical artifacts appeared, more than 20 powerful divine senses swept out one after another. It seemed like they were spying, but also seemed like they were having a contest. Wang tilde another beehive-like sound rang out, and the platform began to vibrate. Gradually, the light fog was lifted, and a huge palace appeared on the platform. The palace was carved with pillars, and its style was simple and unadorned. It was very imposing, but in Xiao Hua's eyes, it was a little strange. The pillars of the palace were abnormally thick, and the space was abnormally large. It was actually more than 10 times larger than an ordinary palace. Whoosh! A rainbow flew out from one of the palace gates and landed directly below Mount Hualai's flying artifact, supporting it. However, the rainbow didn't move at all, and the flying artifact didn't move at all. Huajishan took out an oval-shaped badge and threw it into the rainbow. The rainbow emitted a burst of ripples and began to vibrate. As the rainbow shrank, the flying magic tool also began to move and gradually approached the palace. With a light boom, the flying magic tool leaned against a corner of the palace. The palace gates slowly opened, and 2 golden core cultivators walked out and respectfully lined up on either side of the palace gates. Let's go! Huajishan stood up from his jade chair and walked towards the palace gates. Huajishire and Huapikong didn't even look at Xiao Hua and followed him. When Huajishan got off the flying magic tool, the fire Chileen and fire hibiscus nodded at Xiao Hua and quickly followed him. The golden core disciple that Huajishan sent a message to said, "Wait here, don't move around." Then, the disciple also walked behind Xiao Hua and got off the magic tool. "Greetings, 3 seniors from Mount Hua." The 2 golden core cultivators who were waiting respectfully were rather polite as they bowed and said, "We're Haoming City's guest elders. We're here to welcome the 3 seniors. Thank you for your trouble." Huajishan saw that the 2 cultivators were at the late golden core stage and didn't dare to be disrespectful. "Seniors, please come this way." The 2 cultivators didn't introduce themselves and only spread out their hands, inviting the 3 elders from Mount Hua to enter the palace gates. Huajishan knew that the guests of Haoming City weren't disciples of Haoming City, but rather, they paid a special price to invite other cultivators to make decisions for Haoming City. Their backgrounds and sects were different from Haoming City, so he didn't dare to be disrespectful and slightly nodded before entering the palace gates. When it came to the fire Chileen and fire hibiscus, they were even more humble and bowed, greeting the seniors. Naturally, Xiao Hua also hurriedly bowed. The 2 gold core cultivators nodded slightly. When the last gold core cultivator from the Ardent Fire Mountain entered the palace, the 2 gold core cultivators glanced at each other and released their divine sense. After sweeping the palace gate for a moment, one of the cultivators extended his hand and took out a strange-looking Dharma tablet from his bosom. Under the activation of his magic power, it emitted a strange spiritual movement. The cultivator threw the magic tablet into the ground of the palace gates. A multicolored light appeared on the ground, wrapping around the palace gates. When the 2 Jindan stage cultivators walked through the palace gate, the multicolored light suddenly entered the palace gate. Xiao Hua only felt a burst of chaos in front of his eyes. The perfectly straight path he saw earlier had already disappeared and was replaced by a long suspended bridge. At the palace gates, after the multicolored light disappeared, the palace gates also disappeared, leaving only Mount Huajishan's flying magic tool floating in the air like a flame. This. Xiao Hua looked at the suspended bridge that Mo Jiao had appeared on and was somewhat stunned. He was now a Foundation Establishment cultivator and had even been to the core of Mo Jiao's Black Forest. He had seen many incredible things in the cultivation world. However, the suspended bridge under his feet was 10 feet wide and was very transparent. There was a faint brilliance flowing on it. If not for the divine sense, who could see it? This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that the entire palace seemed to be a boundless space. This transparent suspended bridge was crisscrossing, and there were thousands or tens of thousands of them. Moreover, under the suspended bridge, there seemed to be a bottomless abyss. Xiao Hua probed with his divine sense, but there was no trace of a bottom. Moreover, Xiao Hua stole a glance at the golden core cultivator beside him. There seemed to be a trace of surprise on his face. Obviously, even the divine sense of a golden core cultivator could not reach the bottom. Good heavens! The foundation of this Haoming City is too strong, isn't it? Xiao Hua's eyes turned rapidly as he looked at the suspended bridge in the space that was almost a ball of thread. 3 seniors, please. 2 golden core cultivators appeared in front of Huajishan and the others. They smiled slightly and led the way. Thank you for your trouble, fellow Taoist. Hu Zhishan smiled. In his heart, he was similar to Xiao Hua. However, he only looked at his two brothers and did not say anything. Although this suspended bridge was invisible, it was slightly soft when one stepped on it. Moreover, unlike other magic tools, it could not carry people. Xiao Hua and the others could only cast spells and follow the golden core cultivators in front of them. -8. Chapter 2050. Fortunately, although the atmosphere inside the palace was majestic, it didn't restrict one's cultivation. Apart from the faint sound of the wind outside the floating bridge, there was a kind of huge suction force that even divine senses couldn't escape. Everything else was similar to the outside of the palace. After walking for half the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the group had already arrived at the top of the floating bridge. At this time, the previously empty floating bridge was gradually filled with the silhouettes of other cultivators. Many divine senses also swept over. The divine senses of nascent soul cultivators were like eyes. After sweeping over, it was fine. However, one of the divine senses swept over the group from Blazing Fire Mountain again and again, not to mention Xiao Hua. Even Hua Furong and the others were astonished. At this time, the two golden core cultivators in front of them heard this and took out a magic tablet from their bosom. After activating it, they threw it on top of the floating bridge. Rumble. The entire floating bridge immediately shook. The other half of the floating bridge in front of them rapidly rose from the distance and struck towards them like the tail of a spirit snake. Wu tilde tilde with a burst of fierce wind, the floating bridge suddenly stopped in front of Xiao Hua and the others. Then, it began to fall. A burst of light and shadow changed. Before Xiao Hua's eyes could react, a fortress-like building appeared in front of him. The two golden core cultivators were standing at the entrance of the fortress. 3 seniors, this is the entrance to Xian Kong Pavilion. Forgive us for not being able to enter. The two golden core cultivators respectfully bowed and said, Senior, you can enter by following the path inside. Okay. Hua Zhishan only slightly curled his lips. He knew that this was all deliberately done by Haoming City. He nodded and entered first. When Xiao Hua entered and saw the scene in front of him, he couldn't help but be moved. He saw that this was a huge palace. In front of him was a path that was dozens of feet long, leading straight ahead. On both sides of the path, there was a huge statue every 10 feet or so. Good heavens! How is this a place where cultivators live? Xiao Hua thought. This is probably a palace left behind by those celestials. Xiao Hua naturally thought of the huge white bones in his space. If the white bones were to come back to life and walk in this huge palace, they would be able to bring out the best in each other. They would then look like dwarfs. Sure enough, the fire Cheline, who hadn't made a sound for a long time and had been focused on Xiao Hua's cave, also woke up and released his divine sense. After looking for a long time, he whispered, Furong, this place seems to be related to my Blazing Fire Mountain. Cheline, Hu Zhishan in front coughed and scolded, Cheline, don't talk too much. Use your eyes, use your ears, and use your heart. Yes, this boy understood Cheline's SSSS voice. Blazing fires of the mountain? Xiao Hua's of the Blazing Fire Cheline SSS Fire Cheline SSS Let's go. Hu Zhishan called again. His body flew up and slowly floated towards the end of the road. Xiao Hua flew in the air, but his divine sense was looking at the huge statues around him. These statues were either ferocious giants or ferocious beasts. They all had frightening faces. Moreover, he didn't know what these statues were made of, but his divine sense couldn't penetrate them. Xiao Hua even used his Dharma eyes to secretly look at them a few times. He could see the outlines of the statues, but they were pale. Oh, these statues are actually somewhat similar to the Dharma idol in my space. Xiao Hua's divine sense suddenly saw a statue. It was also a human body with a snake tail. However, this human body was a stalwart man. His face was firm and his muscles were bulging. Moreover, he was wearing a strange armor. In his hand was a weapon that looked like a fork. Just as Xiao Hua's gaze focused on the statue and wanted to take a closer look, he heard a cold voice from afar, fellow Daoist Hua, you're really angry. You can even ignore I's invitation. Could it be that you think you can exchange that thing for something that you want at the auction in Haoming City? Following that voice, naturally, there was a divine sense sweeping over. Xiao Hua's heart trembled. Wasn't this the same divine sense that had swept over everyone on the floating bridge? Oh, isn't this Daoist Blue Feather from the immortal music sect of the Meng Kingdom? Huozhi Shan's voice sounded. He asked curiously, fellow Daoist Blue Feather, when did you give me an invitation? Or did you send a disciple here with a token? It seems that I was drinking and chatting with your sect's two disciples, Li Chengxiu and Zhe Ming, a few days ago. I didn't hear them mention you. H. I was the one who sent you a message during the banquet that day. Daoist Blue Feather still didn't appear, but her voice sounded. Oh! Fellow Daoist Blue Feather, why? Huozhi Shan interrupted. Hehe, so it's a message talisman. This old man and the others have been in Haoming City for a long time. Every day, countless juniors would send a message talisman to our blazing fire mountain for no reason, asking to meet us. Why would we care about these boring message talismans? Every day, our disciples would place bets on these message talismans to see who would crush the most. I'm sure fellow Daoist Blue Feather's message talisman is among them. You. Daoist Blue Feather's tone was a little angry. I sent you a message talisman, but you actually dared to let your disciples crush it. He, fellow Daoist Blue Feather tilde Huozhi Shan laughed. The rule of the cultivation world in the kingdom of Shi has always been to return courtesy with courtesy. If our blazing fire mountain wants to pay a visit, the fellow Daoist of the Imperial Thunder sect will definitely send a disciple of our sect over on the first day. Although we have arranged a time, we can only pay a visit when the fellow Daoist of the Imperial Thunder sect has the time. Otherwise, our blazing fire mountain may be regarded by the Imperial Thunder sect as a sect that doesn't know etiquette and is a low-class cultivator. Oh, perhaps the rules of the Kingdom of Meng are different from those of the Kingdom of Shi. This old man will go back and take a look. I want to know which disciple, who doesn't know the importance of etiquette, actually dared to crush the message talisman of the famous immortal music sect's Daoist Blue Feather. Huozhi Shan's last sentence was one word at a time. He especially emphasized the words message talisman. Ha 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 tilde Daoist Blue Feather laughed instead of being angry. Brilliant idea, brilliant idea. This old man's trip to Haoming City has really broadened my horizons. When did the blazing fire mountain become so unyielding, daring to sneer at our immortal music sect like a needle hidden in cotton? Hey! Fellow Daoist Blue Feather tilde Huozhi Shan laughed. Did my brother's words offend the immortal music sect? We three brothers of the blazing fire mountain have always spoken without meaning. Everyone in the kingdom of Shi knows this. Why is it that when it comes to fellow Daoist Blue Feather, it becomes a needle hidden in cotton? If there's a needle hidden in cotton, wouldn't it be obvious with a sweep of your divine sense? He. Following the voice, a short and stout cultivator's silhouette faintly flashed in the air above Huozhi Shan and the others. There was actually a strange ear-piercing sound. Tch tilde Huapai Kong flicked his sleeve, and the silhouette shattered like glass. He sneered. Fellow Daoist Blue Feather's name is not bad, but your appearance has nothing to do with elegance. There's no need to show off here. No matter how elegant I am, I'm still better looking than you three ugly ghost. Daoist Blue Feather laughed. When your nascent soul formed your body, you didn't even know to modify it a little. You're really embarrassing the kingdom of Shi's cultivators. This old man doesn't want to fix it. So what? Huapai Kong stomped his feet. This old man still wants to use this face to scare people. Third brother, why are you being so long-winded with him? Huozhi Shan sneered. In any case, is my blazing fire mountain a small sect that judges people by their appearance? You. Daoist Blue Feather was at a loss for words when facing the three elders of the blazing fire mountain. I want to see if you can get what you want in the auction. Don't come begging for I when the time comes. You don't have to worry about that. Huapai Kong sneered. At worst, this old man will take it back to raise my children. Then, Daoist Blue Feather's voice disappeared. The three elders of the blazing fire mountain continued to fly slowly. Dang! Another chime sounded, and a suction force suddenly appeared from the path. Xiao Hua was shocked. Just as he was about to move, he heard a faint voice say, "Fellow Taoists, the way to enter the Shen Kong Pavilion is rather special. Please do not resist." Not to mention Xiao Hua, even Hua Zhishan was a little embarrassed and angry. They were just participating in the auction. Although the opponents were all nascent soul cultivators, and the rewards would be plentiful, Haoming City repeatedly played these tricks. They were really petty. However, they had already come this far, and Hua Zhishan and the others seemed to be unable to turn back. This situation was really annoying. At this moment, the suction force on the path grew stronger, and its direction changed, going straight ahead. "Forget it." Hua Zhishan flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "I want to see what tricks Haoming City is playing." As he spoke, light flashed around his body, and only a protective brilliance appeared. His figure gradually flew forward along with the suction force. Xiao Hua and the others naturally followed closely behind. "Ayo, this speed seems to be getting faster." However, as the suction force increased, Xiao Hua and the others' flying speed also increased. In just a few breaths, they had already surpassed the flying speed of a Foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, their speed was still increasing. The pressure around them also increased. Whoosh! Hua Pai Kong, who was the closest to Xiao Hua and the others, frowned slightly. He stretched his right hand behind him and gently flicked his middle finger. A meteor-like brilliance appeared, and the brilliance exploded in midair, forming a layer of light that tightly covered Xiao Hua, Hua Hibiscus, and the fire Qilin. Although he felt the pressure disappear, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly in his heart. Previously, when he saw the increase in speed, he was secretly delighted. He practiced the lightning evasion technique, and speed had always been his forte. If he could see an even faster evasion technique after the bright lightning evasion technique, especially if he could experience it himself, it would be even more beneficial to his lightning evasion technique. Unfortunately, Hua Pai Kong's finger had shattered all of his hopes. -8. The Golden Core disciple that Hua Zhishan sent a message to said, "Wait here, don't move around." Then, the disciple also walked behind Xiao Hua and got off the artifact. "Greetings, 3 seniors from Mount Hualai." The 2 Golden Core cultivators who were waiting respectfully were rather polite as they bowed and said, "We are Haoming City's guest elders. Welcome, seniors. Thank you for your trouble." Hua Zhishan saw that the 2 cultivators were at the late stage of the Golden Core and didn't dare to be disrespectful. "Seniors, please come this way." The 2 cultivators didn't introduce themselves and only spread out their hands, inviting the 3 elders from Mount Hualai to enter the palace gates. Hua Zhishan knew that the guests of Haoming City weren't disciples of Haoming City, but rather, they paid a special price to invite other cultivators to make decisions for Haoming City. Their backgrounds and sects were different from Haoming City, so he didn't dare to be disrespectful and slightly nodded before entering the palace gates. When it came to the fire Qilin and fire Hibiscus, they were even more humble and bowed, greeting the seniors. Naturally, Xiao Hua also hurriedly bowed. The 2 Gold Core cultivators nodded slightly. When the last Gold Core cultivator from the Ardent Fire Mountain entered the palace, the 2 Gold Core cultivators glanced at each other and released their divine sense. After sweeping the palace gate for a moment, one of the cultivators extended his hand and took out a strange-looking Dharma tablet from his bosom. Under the activation of his magic power, it emitted a strange spiritual movement. The cultivator threw the magic tablet into the ground of the palace gates. A multicolored light appeared on the ground and wrapped around the palace gates. When the 2 Jindan stage cultivators walked through the palace gate, the multicolored light suddenly entered the palace gate. Xiao Hua only felt a burst of chaos in front of his eyes. The perfectly straight path he saw earlier had already disappeared and was replaced by a long suspended bridge. At the palace gates, after the multicolored light disappeared, the palace gates also disappeared. Only the flying magic tool of Mount Hualai was left floating in the air like a flame. This. Xiao Hua looked at the suspended bridge that Mo Jiao had appeared on and was somewhat stunned. He was now a foundation-building cultivator and had even been to the core of Mojiao Black Forest. He had seen many incredible things in the cultivation world. However, the suspended bridge under his feet was 10 feet wide and was very transparent. There was a faint brilliance flowing on it. If one didn't use their divine sense to scan it, who could see it? This was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that the entire palace seemed to be a boundless space. This transparent suspended bridge was crisscrossing and crisscrossing. He didn't know how many thousands or tens of thousands of them there were. Moreover, under the suspended bridge, there seemed to be a bottomless abyss. Xiao Hua used his divine sense to explore it, but there was no trace of a bottom. Moreover, Xiao Hua stole a glance at the golden core cultivator of Mount Hualai beside him. There seemed to be a trace of surprise on his face. Obviously, even the divine sense of a golden core cultivator couldn't reach the bottom. Good heavens! The foundation of Haoming City is too strong, isn't it? Xiao Hua's eyes turned rapidly as he looked at the suspended bridge in the space that was almost a ball of thread. 3 seniors, please. 2 golden core cultivators appeared in front of Huozhi Shan and the others. They smiled slightly and led the way. Thank you for your trouble, fellow Taoist. Huozhi Shan smiled. In his heart, he was similar to Xiao Hua. However, he only looked at his 2 brothers and didn't say anything. Although the suspended bridge was invisible, stepping on it made one feel a little soft. Moreover, unlike other magic tools, it could not carry people. Xiao Hua and the others could only use magic techniques to follow the golden core cultivators in front of them as they moved forward. -8. Chapter 2052. Fortunately, although the atmosphere inside the palace was majestic, it didn't restrict one's cultivation. Apart from the faint sound of the wind outside the floating bridge, there was a kind of force that sucked people downwards. Even their divine senses couldn't avoid it. Everything else was similar to the outside of the palace. After walking for half the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the group had already arrived at the top of the floating bridge. At this time, the previously empty floating bridge was gradually filled with the figures of other cultivators. Many divine senses were also sweeping over. The divine senses of nascent soul cultivators were like eyes. After sweeping over them, it was fine. However, one of the divine senses swept over the group from Blazing Fire Mountain again and again, not to mention Xiao Hua. Even Hua Furong and the others were astonished. Who is being rude? Xiao Hua frowned as he thought to himself. At this time, the 2 golden core cultivators in front of him heard this and took out a magic tablet from their bosom. After activating it, they threw it on top of the floating bridge. Rumble. The entire floating bridge immediately shook. The other half of the floating bridge in front of them rapidly rose from the distance and struck towards them like the tail of a spirit snake. Wu tilde tilde with a sharp gust of wind, the floating bridge suddenly stopped in front of Xiao Hua and the others. Then, it began to descend. With a burst of light and shadow, before Xiao Hua's eyes could react, a fortress-like structure appeared in front of him. The 2 golden core cultivators were standing at the entrance of the fortress. 3 seniors, this is the entrance to Xian Kong Pavilion. Forgive us for not being able to enter. The 2 golden core cultivators respectfully bowed and said, Senior, you just need to follow the path inside and enter. Okay. Huozhi Shan only slightly curled his lips. He knew that this was all deliberately done by Haoming City. He nodded and entered. When Xiao Hua entered and saw the scene in front of him, he couldn't help but be moved. He saw that this was a huge palace. In front of him was a path that was dozens of feet long. It led straight ahead, and on both sides of the path, there was a huge statue every 10 feet or so. Good heavens! How is this a place where cultivators live? Xiao Hua thought to himself. This is probably a palace left behind by those celestials. Xiao Hua naturally thought of the huge white bones in his space. If the white bones were to come back to life and walk in this huge palace, they would be able to bring out the best in each other. They would then look like dwarfs. Sure enough, the fire Chelin, who hadn't made a sound for a long time and had been focused on Xiao Hua's cave, also woke up and released his divine sense. After looking for a long time, he said in a low voice, "Furong, this place seems to be related to my blazing fire mountain." Cough, cough. Hurishure coughed and scolded, "Chileen, don't talk too much. Just use your eyes, ears, and heart to remember." Yes, boy understands Tilda. Even though the fire Chileen was a fool, he wasn't stupid. He had just blurted it out and was now on guard. "Yi, the ardent fire mountain also has such a place?" Xiao Hua naturally heard it. These places are probably ancient ruins. Who knows, there might be some secret techniques left behind from ancient times. "Let's go." Tilda Hurishure called out again. His figure flew up and slowly floated towards the end of the road. Xiao Hua flew in the air, but his divine sense was looking at the huge statues around him. These statues were either ferocious giants or ferocious beasts. All of them had frightening faces. Moreover, he didn't know what these statues were made of. His divine sense couldn't penetrate them. Xiao Hua even used his Dharma eyes to secretly look at them a few times. He could actually see the outlines of the statues, but they were pale white. "Ayo, these statues are actually somewhat similar to the Dharma idol in my space." Xiao Hua's divine sense suddenly saw a statue. It was also a human body with a snake tail. However, this human body was a stalwart man. His face was firm and his muscles were bulging. Moreover, he was wearing a strange armor and held a fork-like weapon in his hand. Just as Xiao Hua focused his gaze on the statue and wanted to take a closer look, he heard a cold voice from afar, "Fellow Daoist Hua, you're really angry. You can even ignore I's invitation. Could it be that you think you can exchange that thing for something that you want at the auction in Haoming City?" Following that voice, naturally, there was a divine sense sweeping over. Xiao Hua's heart trembled. Wasn't this divine sense the one that swept over everyone on the floating bridge? "Ayo, isn't this Daoist Blue Feather from the immortal music sect of the Meng Kingdom?" Hurishure's voice sounded. He asked curiously, "Fellow Daoist Blue Feather, when did you give me an invitation? Or did you send a disciple with a token? It seems that I was drinking and chatting with your sect's two disciples, Li Chengxiu and Zhe Ming, a few days ago. I didn't hear them mention you. Mph, I was the message talisman you sent that day at the banquet." Daoist Blue Feather still didn't appear, but her voice sounded. "Oh, fellow Daoist Blue Feather, why?" Huishure interrupted. "Hehe, so it's a message talisman. We've been in Haoming City for a long time. Every day, countless juniors would send message talismans to our blazing fire mountain for no reason, asking to meet us. Why would we care about these boring message talismans? Every day, the boys under the sect would place bets on these communication talismans to see who could crush the most talismans. I'm sure fellow Daoist Blue Feather's message talisman is among them." "You." Daoist Blue Feather's tone was a little angry. "I sent you a message talisman, but you actually dared to let your disciples crush it." "Hee, fellow Daoist Blue Feather." Tilda Huishure laughed. "The rule of the cultivation world in the kingdom of Shi has always been to return courtesy with courtesy. If our blazing fire mountain wants to pay a visit, fellow Daoist from the Imperial Thunder sect will definitely send a disciple of our sect over on the first day. Although we've arranged a time, we can only pay a visit after the fellow Daoist from the Imperial Thunder sect has time. Otherwise, our blazing fire mountain might be seen as a sect that doesn't know etiquette by the Imperial Thunder sect, an unorthodox cultivator. Oh, perhaps the rules of the Kingdom of Meng are different from those of the Kingdom of Shi. I'll go back and take a look. I'll see which disciple, who doesn't know the severity of the matter and etiquette, actually dared to crush the message talisman of the famous immortal music sect, Daoist Blue Feather." Hurishure's last sentence was one word at a time. He especially emphasized the three words message talisman. "Ha ha ha." Tilda Daoist Blue Feather laughed instead of being angry. "Brilliant, brilliant. This trip to Haoming City has really broadened my horizons. When did the blazing fire mountain become so unyielding, daring to mock our immortal music sect like a needle hidden in cotton?" "Hey, fellow Daoist Blue Feather." Tilda Hurishure laughed. "Did my brother's words offend the immortal music sect?" Our three brothers of the blazing fire mountain have always spoken without meaning. Everyone in the kingdom of she knows this. Why is it that when it comes to fellow Daoist blue feather, it becomes a needle hidden in cotton? If there's a needle hidden in cotton, wouldn't you be able to detect it with a sweep of your divine sense? Hee hee. Following the voice, a short and fat cultivator's silhouette faintly flashed in the air above Huishure and the others. There was actually a strange ear-piercing sound. Tch tilde Huapai Kong flicked his sleeve, and the silhouette shattered like glass. He sneered. Fellow Daoist blue feather's name is not bad, but your appearance has nothing to do with elegance. There's no need to show off here. No matter how elegant I am, I'm still better looking than you three ugly ghost. Daoist blue feather laughed. When your nascent soul formed your body, you didn't even know to modify it a little. You're really embarrassing the kingdom of she's cultivators. This old man doesn't want to fix it. So what? Huapai Kong stomped his feet. This old man still wants to use this face to scare people. Third brother, why are you being so long-winded with him? Huishure sneered. Anyway, is my blazing fire mountain a small sect that judges people by their appearance? You. Daoist blue feather was at a loss for words when facing the three elders of the blazing fire mountain. I want to see if you can get what you want in the auction. Don't come begging for I when the time comes. You don't have to worry about that. Huapai Kong sneered. If worse comes to worst, this old man will take it back to raise my children. Then, Daoist blue feather's voice disappeared. The three elders of the blazing fire mountain continued to fly slowly. Dang! Another chime sounded, and a suction force suddenly appeared from the path. Xiao Hua was shocked. Just as he was about to move, he heard a faint voice say, "Fellow Taoists, the way to enter the Xian Kong Pavilion is a little special. Please don't resist." Not to mention Xiao Hua, even Huozhi Shan was a little embarrassed and angry. They were just participating in the auction. Although the opponents were all nascent soul cultivators, and the rewards would be plentiful, Haoming City repeatedly played these tricks. They were really petty. However, they had already come this far, and Huozhi Shan and the others seemed to be unable to turn back. This situation was really annoying. At this moment, the suction force on the path grew stronger, and its direction changed, going straight ahead. Forget it. Huozhi Shan flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "I want to see what tricks Haoming City is playing." As he spoke, light flashed around his body, and only a protective brilliance appeared. His figure gradually flew forward along with the suction force. Xiao Hua and the others naturally followed closely behind. Ayo, this speed seems to be getting faster. However, as the suction force increased, Xiao Hua and the others' flying speed also increased. In just a few breaths, they had already surpassed the flying speed of a foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, their speed was still increasing. The pressure around them also increased. Whoosh! Huapai Kong, who was the closest to Xiao Hua and the others, frowned slightly. He stretched his right hand behind him and gently flicked his middle finger. A meteor-like brilliance appeared, and the brilliance exploded in midair, forming a layer of light that tightly covered Xiao Hua, Hua Hibiscus, and the fire Chiline. Although he felt the pressure disappear, Xiao Hua smiled bitterly in his heart. When he saw the increase in speed, he was secretly delighted. He practiced the lightning evasion technique, and speed had always been his forte. If he could see an even faster evasion technique after the bright lightning evasion technique, especially if he could experience it himself, it would be even more beneficial to his lightning evasion technique. Unfortunately, Huapai Kong's finger had shattered all of his hopes. -8. Chapter 2053. Putting aside Xiao Hua's gloominess, Huozhi Shan and the others were flying faster and faster. When they reached a certain limit, sparks appeared on the light barrier around Xiao Hua and the others. Even the nascent soul cultivators' expressions changed. Xiao Hua and the others felt as if they had bumped into something and stopped again. It was as if they had broken through an extremely powerful restriction. Xiao Hua and the others arrived at another place. Hiss tilde when Xiao Hua came back to his senses, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. At this time, everyone was standing in the void. The void was boundless and showed endless secrets. In the void, there were countless spheres of various sizes. Above Xiao Hua and the others, there was a fireball that was tens of thousands of feet large and emitted flames that were hundreds of thousands of feet wide. It was quietly floating. Sky. Sky Dao starry sky? Xiao Hua couldn't help but groan in his heart. He originally thought that his Sky Dao starry sky was the only one in the world. However, seeing something similar to the Sky Dao starry sky in his own space, he knew that there were many powerful cultivators in the world. It seems, something is wrong. Xiao Hua was surprised at first, but then he sensed that all the spheres and the starry sky were lifeless. They didn't understand anything at all. They were far from the mysterious changes in his space. Xiao Hua's eyes turned and looked at the fire Qilin and the others. Sure enough, it wasn't just Xiao Hua who was surprised. Everyone from Ardent Fire Mountain was also stunned. Ha ha ha! A voice resounded through the entire starry sky. Then, like a curtain being lifted, the entire void disappeared with a whoosh. A bright sunny day appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Moreover, to the left of Xiao Hua and the others, more than 20 nascent soul cultivators appeared in the void. Xiao Hua followed the light and looked down. Under his feet was the platform that everyone had entered from. Many flying artifacts were quietly parked around the platform. Fellow Taoists, forgive I for being presumptuous. A tall and dignified middle-aged man with a horsetail whisk in his hand and a light golden daoist crown on his head appeared in the void. He stood at the same level as everyone and cupped his hands in greeting. This is the Xian Kong Pavilion that my Haoming city obtained more than 10,000 years ago. Because the restriction inside is too ancient, it hasn't been completely broken. Until today, only a small part of it can be used. I used the Xian Kong Pavilion as the venue for today's auction. This is where I's sincerity lies. Hua Pekong was the first to sneer. Yang Hong, I didn't come to participate in the auction to be humiliated by your Ming city. Time and time using some restriction magical ability. Do you think that only your Haoming city has ancient ruins from ancient times? Hua Pekong's temper was not good. This was obviously what the other nascent soul cultivators thought as well, so everyone was silent. Reverend Yang Hong wasn't angry. He waved the horsetail whisk in his hand and said with a smile, if you want to explore the mysteries of the Great Tao, you must have great method. It seems that no one can understand my painstaking effort. Great Tao? A slightly exaggerated voice sounded. Yang Hong, you're saying that your Xian Kong Pavilion actually has the mystery of the Great Tao? As expected of the Imperial Thunder Sect's MIU. Your knowledge is extraordinary. Yang Hong smiled as he looked across from Xiao Hua. Over there were several golden core cultivators from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Mystery of the Great Tao? Hearing MIU's words, the expressions of several nascent soul cultivators who knew some ancient secrets changed. Yang Hong, this is the legendary Void Palace that was built by the ancient Celestials? The Void Palace that is said to be able to turn one's body into a saint just by peering into its mystery? Alas, when the seniors of my Haoming city obtained this palace, they also thought so. They all wanted to comprehend the great Tao from it and peek into the mysteries of heaven before reaching the great ascension stage. Unfortunately, how could we have such fate? Yang Hong smiled bitterly. This is just a magic tool that looks like an ancient palace. The Xian Kong Pavilion inside has some great Tao, but this starry sky is lifeless. There's nothing to comprehend. Otherwise, how could I dare to take this thing out? Am I not afraid of being distracted by the seniors? In fact, to tell you the truth, I have already asked a senior to look at it. It should be an imitation. It has the shape but not the essence. Oh. The nascent soul cultivators were all regretful and glad at the same time. Although it's an imitation, it may give us a glimpse into the situation of the ancient Void Palace. I appreciate fellow Daoist Yang Hong's painstaking effort. A handsome female cultivator said with a smile. Thank you for the praise, Fairy Miao Chang of the Five Elements sect. I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Yang Hong patted his chest and smiled. Tilda Fairy Miao Chang covered her mouth and laughed. Since we have seen the ancient palace of Haoming City, shouldn't fellow Daoist Yang Hong's auction begin? Yes, I will begin now. Yang Hong clapped his hands and there seemed to be some fluctuations of spiritual power. Then, the void began to change again. Many jade tables appeared in front of everyone. According to the number of nascent soul cultivators, the jade chairs also appeared in front of everyone. In the end, a ring-shaped brilliance connected the jade tables together. Xiao Hua was still amazed at first. He couldn't tell whether this thing rising out of the void was Yang Hong's spell or the Xian Kong Pavilion's forbidden spell. However, when the ring-shaped brilliance appeared, Xiao Hua understood that these jade tables and chairs were prepared and definitely not born out of thin air. Fellow Taoists, Yang Hong stood at the head of the table without a disciple beside him and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, you are all nascent soul cultivators of the sects in the three kingdoms of cultivation. I think you are all familiar with each other, so I won't introduce you one by one. As for the fellow Taoists dressed in camouflage robes, I also know their origins. I can guarantee the origin of these fellow Taoists. Of course, if any fellow Daoist has any objections, you can withdraw from the auction now. I and the other fellow Taoists won't stop you." After waiting for a while and seeing that no one responded, Yang Hong raised his hand and said, "Fellow Taoists, please sit down. My Haoming City's once-in-a-century auction officially begins." Once everyone was seated, Daoist Yang Hong said, "Thank you, fellow Taoists. Our vast brilliant city holds this auction once every 100 years. Firstly, it's a chance for us nascent soul cultivators to exchange cultivation experiences. Secondly, it's a chance for us to exchange cultivation experiences. In view of this, starting from today, within 10 days, my Haoming City will also hold auctions for cultivators of different realms. This is also a scene in my country of Xi. My Haoming City will also profit a lot because of this." -8. Chapter 2054. Fellow Daoist Yarrow Hong, you seem to have to say this once every 100 years. I'm tired of hearing it. Can you use some new words? A withered cultivator said indifferently. Hehe, fellow Daoist Qi Jiankai, you said the same thing last time, right? Reverend Yang Hong didn't seem to be angry and replied, I wonder what good things your Shonghua sect can take out this time? I'm a cultivator of the Shonghua sect, but this time, I did it myself. It has nothing to do with the sect. Qi Jiankai was still as cold as ever. Then, he rolled his eyes and looked at the other old man who looked to be in his 50s. Unlike a certain someone. Every time he uses the name of Chichiao sect, the things he brings out are worthless. Old man Qi, who did you say used the 7 Skills sect's banner? An old man around 50 years old answered and slapped the table in front of him. The table instantly turned into fragments. I just sat down and you won't let me feel at ease. Reverend Ku Yi. Reverend Yang Hong immediately waved his hand and smiled. Fellow Daoist Qi is only joking. Every time, fellow Daoist will be trick. Hehe, isn't that so? Last time, wasn't it because Ku Yi got angry that fellow Daoist Qi took the lead? Reverend Mi, you said with a smile. Ever since he appeared in Xian Kong Pavilion, he didn't even look at Xiao Hua. It was as if he had never seen Xiao Hua before. Reverend Ku Yi from the 7 Skills sect seemed to have suffered from Qi Jianghai's trick before. He coldly snorted and sat down. Reverend Yang Hong waved his sleeve and another table appeared in front of Reverend Ku Yi. Fine, I won't say anything more. The rules of this auction are the same every year. The only thing that changes is the location of the auction and the positions of fellow Daoist. Reverend Yang Hong nodded. Let's start from my right hand. Fellow Daoist will take out the items one by one and we'll bid. We'll bid according to fellow Daoist's conditions. Reverend Yang Hong glanced at the cultivator in camouflage clothing on his right hand and said, Fellow Daoist, please. Immediately after, Daoist Master Yang Hong sat down. The cultivator in the camouflage robe stood up and a hoarse voice sounded, This thing of mine is a bit strange, so I can't meet you with my original appearance. As he spoke, The cultivator slapped his hand and took out a long sword that was over a foot long from his storage pouch. He placed it on the table and said, "This old man obtained this from the Mojiao Black Forest. In my opinion, this flying sword belongs to Changbai sect's Reverend Bright Sword." Ah! Immortal Bright Sword of the Changbai sect. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. They all looked at a cultivator with sword-like eyebrows that reached his temples and a very arrogant expression on his face. And what about Xiao Hua? Their expressions changed several times. There was no restriction on divine sense in the Xian Kong Pavilion. Everyone's divine sense had already scanned the area when the cultivator took out the long sword. Xiao Hua also released his divine sense. He had a deep impression of this long sword. After all, he had died once under that sword. Could it be that there are also nascent soul cultivators in Inkcloud Black Forest? Xiao Hua was shocked and couldn't help but release his divine sense. However, when he saw the appearance of the long sword, he was slightly stunned and showed a trace of understanding. This sword was similar to the sword that had killed Xiao Hua, but there seemed to be something missing. But what exactly was missing, Xiao Hua couldn't say for the time being. After all, Reverend Brightsword's so-called sword intent had been stored in Xiao Hua's space along with his long sword. Reverend Brightsword had clearly said that Xiao Hua's longsword was not the longsword he usually used. The arrogant cultivator was Changbai sect's Li Kangqing. When he saw everyone looking at him, he sneered, "Reverend Brightsword is a senior of my Changbai sect. His sword technique is something I can't compare to. Moreover, his Dao is still spreading in my Changbai sect. I can't be sure if this long sword is his or not. Of course, my Dao sect's flying sword is different from the flying sword of sword cultivators. It doesn't have a sword spirit. Even if someone can comprehend the essence of my Changbai sect's sword technique, it would be extremely difficult. Fellow Daoist, is this what you want? Hehe, I am not as despicable as fellow Daoist Li says." The MIWN cultivator also replied, "I got this long sword. I don't specialize in flying swords, so I brought it out for everyone to see. Perhaps some of you will like it. That's easy. Fellow Daoist, how about we take a look at the long sword?" Daoist Master Withered Leaf from the Seven Skills sect said with a smile. His gaze swept towards Qi Jianghai. Of course. The MIWN cultivator slapped his hand and the long sword slowly moved towards Daoist Withered Leaf through the halo on the table. Oh! Xiao Hua now understood that the halo had such a use. Sure enough, when the long sword arrived in front of Daoist Withered Leaf, he didn't take the long sword from the halo. Instead, he pulled the long sword out of the scabbard and carefully examined it. Then he narrowed his eyes. No one knew what he was planning. "I also want to take a look." The Blue Li sect's Shen Yunzi slammed the table in the distance, and the long sword slowly arrived in front of him. Daoist Withered Leaf seemed to have thought it through and asked in a low voice, "Fellow Daoist, how would you like to exchange for this long sword?" He, although I don't use the long sword, I am currently refining a magic treasure. I am missing a few materials: owl space gold, tranquil stone, secret gong, fan tong, and Qingling moon. If Daoist Withered Leaf has these 5 materials, then this longsword will be yours. What? You? Daoist Master Withered Leaf was stunned. Owl space metal is an ethereal material. Any magic tool or magic treasure that has owl space metal added to it will not only have its weight reduced by 30%, it will also be able to avoid detection by spiritual sense. Tranquil stone can remove the restrictions of the 5 elements. Secret gong can increase the hardness of magic treasures. Needless to say, they are all rare materials used to refine magic treasures. With just one of those materials, the quality of magic treasures will rise to a new level. Fellow Daoist actually wants 5 materials in one go. Isn't this asking for too much? Forget it, fellow Daoist, I won't be thinking about this long sword. Then how many materials does fellow Daoist have? The MIMO cultivator was not surprised and only asked. I only have secret gong and fan tong, Daoist Withered Leaf said unhappily. I still want to use them to refine magic treasures. Fellow Daoist Withered Leaf, your secret gong and fan tong, can you trade with I? The distant Shen Yunzi said. Oh. Fellow Daoist Shen Yunzi is actually interested in these things. Daoist Withered Leaf was slightly stunned and nodded. I have accumulated a lot of secret gong and fan tong to refine magic treasures. I can trade with fellow Daoist Shen Yunzi. Okay. Shen Yunzi immediately sent a sound transmission to Daoist Withered Leaf to discuss the price. The distant Hua Hibiscus sent a sound transmission to Xiao Hua, fellow Daoist Xiao. Daoist Brightsword's longsword is a bidding item. Its price must be known by everyone and cannot be transmitted through sound transmission. The transaction between Senior Withered Leaf and Senior Shen Yunzi is private and can only be known by the two of them. In addition, if Senior Shen Yunzi only has one or two of the materials, he can also ask other seniors for the remaining materials. Similarly, the transaction will be completed through sound transmission. Oh, Xiao Hua nodded slightly. This kind of bidding method guaranteed the completion of the transaction to the greatest extent. It would not make a nascent soul cultivator come all the way here. Sure enough, after Daoist Withered Leaf and Shen Yunzi finished their discussion, Shen Yunzi had a satisfied expression. He raised his head and asked, I only have Owl Space Gold and Tranquility Stone. Now, I still lack Qingling Moon. I wonder which fellow Daoist has this item. I am willing to trade. Unexpectedly, after Shen Yunzi's voice fell for a long time, perhaps falling into the mountain range of Haoming City, there was still no response. Shen Yunzi was somewhat helpless and almost mocked. Alas, I was also a bit impatient. This Qingling Moon is a magic treasure. How can it be easy to obtain? If a magic treasure can obtain a drop, it can be upgraded to a spirit tool. Immediately, Shen Yunzi raised his head again and said, Fellow Daoist, I only have these 4 materials. Do you want to trade? The cultivator did not answer directly, but whispered, Fellow Daoists, are you not interested in this flying sword? The others did not answer, but Li Tsungqing laughed coldly. His laughter did not matter, but Shen Yunzi's face showed hesitation. Forget it, fellow Daoist, I will also take a step back. This flying sword is yours. The Mi cultivator sighed and said. He took a step back, but Shen Yunzi was somewhat hesitant. What? Fellow Daoist, you don't want it anymore? The Mi cultivator laughed and said, This flying sword belongs to Daoist Brightsword. Moreover, looking at the sword body, it is not like what we expected. The sword body is damaged, so I risked my cultivation to find this item. Let's not talk about the refining of the flying sword. I believe fellow Daoist Li knows better than I. Fellow Daoist Shen Yunzi used these 4 materials to return this flying sword. No matter from which perspective, it is a profit. Good. I agree. Shen Yunzi nodded and slapped his hand. He took out a storage pouch and placed it on the halo. The storage pouch slowly turned in front of Daoist Withered Leaf. Daoist Withered Leaf was also ready. He put his hand in and placed 2 small jade boxes. There were some flickering restrictions on the jade boxes. Shen Yunzi did not take the jade boxes. He slapped his hand and took out 2 jade boxes from his storage pouch and placed them on the halo. The 4 jade boxes slowly turned towards the Mi cultivator. Wait at this moment, Changbai sect's Li Tsungqing shouted. Sorry, fellow Daoist Li. Daoist Yang Hong smiled and said, Fellow Daoist Shen Yunzi has already made a deal with this fellow Daoist. Fellow Daoist Li should wait for the next time. HMPH Li Tsungqing snorted and glanced at Shen Yunzi. Although Shen Yunzi was a cultivator of the Lan Li sect and was not as powerful as the Changbai sect, he was still a nascent soul cultivator. Moreover, he was in the country of Shi and not the country of Meng. Why would he be afraid of him? Rolling his eyes, he reached out and grabbed the long sword in his hand. At this moment, the sword seemed to have been unsealed and was easily held in his hand. Shen Yunzi held the sword in his hand and casually pulled out the flying sword from the scabbard. With a clang, a green sword light flashed through the air. -8. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.